Hello and welcome to Kody and Korbin Have a Podcast, the show where two former roommates talk about a new movie every week. But this week on the show, we're talking about the 50 movies of KHAP. As always, I'm your host, Korbin Zvokel, and I'm joined by my co-host through these past 50 movies, Kody Webb. Kody, how are we doing?
Doing great, man. Yeah, great intro from you, per usual. Should be a fun episode, I think. Maybe get a little nostalgic, but yeah, it's pretty insane. We've done 50 different movies throughout this time, and I think it's gonna be fun going back. But yeah, how you doing, man?
Good, man. And it's definitely cool as we reach kind of this Catch Me If You Can was our 50th movie that we've done. I think we've done like 75 episodes. It's a lot of fun, and it's cool to kind of look back and reminisce a little bit on some of the movies we've talked about. What we're going to be doing today is at the end of every episode, we do our ranking out of from 1 to 69. We score the movie, we both do it. So we're going to go back and we're going to look at those rankings, and we're going to basically find what is the 50th movie all the way to the favorite movie of KHAP based on our average ranking that we've been giving. We're not re-ranking or changing these at all. This is just what did we rate when we saw the movie and we did it. So we just have to trust in our judgments at the time of recording. The only thing we will be doing is breaking ties as they come up. So yeah, I'm excited to do that. And then after that, we're going to be giving out some awards, which should be a lot of fun as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think it's gonna be fun to go back, especially like in some of our early season episodes, just see like where our ratings stand now. Do we still like agree with those ratings? Yeah, should be a lot of fun, I think.
I almost guarantee that we will not agree with everything we say, but that's the beauty of it. We're sticking to our guns. We're standing up for our past selves, and these are the 50 movies of KHAP.
Max, let's do it.
The awards we're going to give out later are our best actor performance, best actress performance, best supporting actor, best supporting actress, best child performance, best directed movie, best written movie, best shot movie, best music, most underrated movie, most overrated movie, best date movie, best movie to watch in a theater, and most rewatchable movie.
Lovely. A lot of good categories there. I mean, we're kind of doing like a mini Oscars for just like our cat movies, which I think is gonna be a lot of fun. And I'm sure those categories will be highly debated as well. 'Cause, I mean, you can go so many different directions with 50. I wouldn't say decent movies, but we'll get into more of that. But yeah, I'm excited to see what you have for those categories.
For sure. And, I do want to say, technically, we have watched 51 movies for the podcast,
Mhm.
but there's the secret lost episode that never happened. We watched the movie, and then because of scheduling, we're never able to record it. Six Balloons is the title of that film. Maybe in the next 50, we'll finally get around to it. But
That's true. That's just great cat lore there. I think the hidden episode. But I mean, also we have contact lists that could be thrown in as well, cat movies as well, coming off my solo pod.
well,
But
I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to talk about
uh,
it. Kody, I loved the episode. It was
yeah,
fantastic. If you're listening to
thank
this and
you.
you haven't listened to Kody's solo pod, it's comes in right about 30 minutes, so it's real easy listen. Obviously, I'm gonna love it because it's basically him praising me for 30 minutes, shouting out my short film contact list. But it's actually a really great episode, and I liked a lot of the stuff you talked about. You picked up on some great stuff, and there's a lot of stuff I feel like I want to discuss further with you. So maybe down the line, we'll do a more extended look with, because you had some questions and I'd love to
I
answer them
did.
for you later.
Yeah, I didn't have all the insider information really. So I was incorrect on a couple things as well. But yeah, I think that'd be super fun doing another episode, going back and looking at it further. But yeah, like you said, if you haven't seen that episode, go check it out. Also, if you haven't checked out Corbin's short film, go check it out. Also super short, but yeah, that whatever you want to call it, the video, the link of the week. Go fucking watch a short film, right? If it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna get you guys to watch this thing. But yeah, I had a ton of fun doing that solo pod. Definitely check that out too. And if you notice my audio is a little different too, I actually left my AirPods, I think, at the place old home where I was doing the solo pod at. So rip that, even though, I tried to put in the work, something still came back to bite me. So apologies about the audio this week, but we should be back to normal next week. Anywho.
All right, let's get into it. The 50 movies of KHAP. We're going to start at 50 and go down to one. Lists making is very popular right now. I think there's a little bit of an art to it. Sight and Sound just released their top 100 films of all time. But here's our top 50 of movies we've talked about. Coming in at number 50, this probably is no surprise. It's The Wrong Missy. Kody, do you think this is the worst movie?
Personally, I would say no, but we'll get into the other ones as well. But The Wrong Missy, I think it's a great place to start, and it is ranked 50. But I think it was one of my more favorite episodes, just because we had a great guest, and I think it actually got like a decent amount of views. So I don't know if
Looking
Emmy,
back at our Spotify Wrapped, it was like the episode that got the most new listeners. So
yeah,
shout out to Emmy for bringing in the people.
big shout out Emmy McLaughlin. Yeah, roped a bunch of people to listen, if you appreciate. But I think it was a fun episode too. Like it's kind of a weird comedy. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stupid stuff. And sometimes those are my favorite episodes where we do like, the obvious bad movies. But yeah, our score rating for this, I don't know if you said it, 21 and a half, obviously on average. And my rating was actually 34. And Corbin's rating was 9. So I think you didn't enjoy this movie in too many facets. But would you say this is probably your least favorite movie we've done?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely for me, it's the one I ranked the lowest. So that kind of explains why it is so low. I did not include guest rankings in this list. I wanted to be purely our top 50. Emmy did give it a 40, which would have bumped it up a little higher. But for me, this is the worst one. It's not the last Sandler or at least Happy Madison production that we'll get to as the list goes on. But I think we'll move on to our 49th film, which is your least favorite. And that's Chicken Little. Another fun one. These bad movies are fun to talk about. This is like an old classic childhood favorite for me, but you were very against this movie when we talked about it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my worst movie by far. And yeah, I gave this rating. I mean, excuse me, I gave this movie a rating of 10, which was just one higher than you for The Wrong Missy. You gave it a 36, so it came around to 23 in the average. Yeah, I think it's funny. You even just said, I think, that this is a bad movie, which I'm surprised you'd even say that. It's an absolute abomination. Obviously, it's a kid's flick, whatever. But this would be the one where I'd be like, actually, do not watch this movie because it's terrible. Maybe I just have personal beef with Chicken Little. I don't know, but yeah, don't check it out.
And we are actually breaking this list into some tiers, and we're calling these bottom 10 films the don't watch the movie, just listen to the pod instead. So you don't need to watch The Wrong Missy. You don't need to watch Chicken Little. Just listen to our pod because it covers everything I think you can want to know about these movies.
Oh yeah, and the bottom 10, I feel like maybe we're hating on them a little bit, but I mean these bottom tier ones, like, don't actually watch these movies. The episode's fun because we get to riff into it, and I recommend that. That's why it's in the listen in the pod instead. But yeah, we have done some stingers on this pod, so I would not recommend them.
Sometimes these bad movie episodes are some of my favorites to record. Like you said, getting to rip into the movies, getting to kind of talk critically. When a movie's great and we love everything about it, it's almost a little bit harder to discuss to a certain degree. So I definitely appreciate these ones. And as we get into our 48th movie, there's another a classic Happy Madison production with Paul Blart, which came in at a 27 and a half. Great guest for this episode, Ben Smith, maybe our guest with the hottest takes besides yourself, of course, Kody. Ben Smith was a great one to talk Blart with.
True. That was the perfect guess, I think, for that specific movie. And this is the first one in season 4. So it's got to be the worst of season 4, even at the end of the season, I would guess, just based off that 27 and a half rating. But yeah, I was a little bit lower. I gave it a 20. You actually gave this a 35, which was pretty similar to Chicken Little, which I was kind of surprised by. But this definitely deserves to be, I think, like in the bottom 3 at least. I would put The Wrong Missy above this, but I think Paul Blart is probably like the worst comedy we've done on the show pretty easily.
I think I rated Paul Blart so highly just because I thought it held up better than I expected. Like I went in with such low expectations having watched it, and it kind of surprised me. So I gave it the 35. 47, another guest episode. The guests really bring in the bad movies, I think.
Yeah.
But a fun episode to talk about a young Haley Steinfeld. That's Ender's Game with a score of 35 for our 47th.
Yeah, absolutely. And spoiler alert, I'm not nominating Haley Steinfeld for best supporting actress for this movie. This movie's an abomination, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know. I rated it at 39. Not sure how I got there because I don't remember too much about this movie, even though obviously this was
Harrison
just a couple
Ford's in
seasons
it.
ago.
I know that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was Butterboy, but I don't think anybody's particularly good. I think actually what's the bald guy's name in that movie?
Ben Kingsley, is he in it?
Yeah, Ben Kingsley, the Mandarin. Ben Kingsley has like one scene and he's good. I think that's why I
Oscar winner Ben Kingsley.
true. But this is another one like I'd recommend, like one of our better episodes, I think. Another great guest with Austin. And I think it was a lot of fun, like ripping this movie to shreds. So yeah, definitely recommend it.
All right, you want to take it away with 46, Kody?
Absolutely. And moving on to the next one, we're going back to season 3 again for another guest pick, and that's going to be Jurassic World. Obviously, we had great guest Jacob Spassi, and he rated it a little bit higher than us. Our average score was 37, with me at 41 and you at 33. But yeah, I think that we're kind of getting to more of the mid-tier stuff. I would definitely still not recommend this movie for anybody to watch, but like cinematically, this is a better experience than most of the other ones we've talked about, I think.
This movie is the most popular one up to this point. The Jurassic World made $1 billion+ at the box office, had one of the biggest opening weekends of all time when it opened. And this was a well listened to episode, but just not a great movie, kind of sexist, poorly written, and doesn't live up to the Jurassic Park franchise legacy.
True. And I'm not sure if you nominated anything for this movie, but the one I surely did nominate for was Best Child Performance. just because that one creepy kid is so weird. And it's so out of context for the movie. But yeah, I don't think I had any nominations for this one, sadly. But I say we move swiftly on to number 45, which was one of our more interesting episodes. And that would be Stalker. Obviously, this was pushed upon us by RCR themselves. Shout out the boys Jackson and Carter. You know, we lost them in trivia back in season 3, and they made us do a piece on this. And I'll tell you what, I really dislike this movie. I gave it a 25, but our mean rating was 40, just because you rated it at 56. So are you a little mad? This is, in the listen to the pod tier instead?
I think for the average movie watcher, this is a really good spot for it. This movie is long, it's slow, it's got a lot of big ideas, and it's probably especially in this bottom tier, it is easily the best made movie. Technically, it is very beautiful. It is well acted. It lacks in a lot of ways, especially in a modern viewing setting. But I think this is a fine spot for it. When you put it up against some of the others.
I guess I would agree, just because it's in the lower tier, but I do not like this movie at all. I think this is the third lowest rating that I have on a movie, which is pretty crazy because I feel like it's fairly critically acclaimed. But yeah, some of this movie just did not sit with me, and I'm happy it's down here. I'm happy it's not even in the mid tier because I think it's not very good. It's a Tarkovsky, right? Legendary director, but I'm not a fan.
And interestingly enough, this was a really good 1-2 punch because we did Annihilation right before this, which a lot of people say is kind of a spiritual successor to Stalker. So definitely 2 great episodes to check out there. Now let's move on to our 44th film, another Sandler in here at the bottom. This one, of course, Grown Ups, which I would say is the best of the 3. So I'm happy with where it's at, 41.5.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. This is a classic movie. I rated it at 53. Obviously one of my personal favorites. You were a little bit lower at 30, but this is our first entry from season 1 as well, I believe. And I think we actually did a lot of decent movies in season 1. This was obviously our lowest rated one, but I mean, Adam Sandler classic. I'm going to nominate this for a couple of categories at the end, so stay tuned for that. But Grown Ups, how can you go wrong? And definitely one of my favorite episodes. Just talking about that movie too. A lot of fun.
I do want to say I just did the math. Stalker was the greatest distance between our 2 rankings. So 31 points difference was the biggest.
It's
Another
like
notable one,
Chicken
Chicken
Little.
Little, 26 between. And then, of course, this movie, Grown Ups, as well, 23 difference. For me, I definitely don't enjoy this movie as well. That's kind of our difference in our tastes. You're a bigger Sandler comedy, that type of movie fan than I am in general. So it's not surprising that you rank this a little bit higher. Definitely a super rewatchable movie, super enjoyable movie to kind of sit down and turn your brain off, but not a great movie by any means.
How dare you say that? But yeah, I mean, I agree. It's Adam Sandler, but it's like peak Adam Sandler, at least 20 Adam Sandler. But that does bring us to the end of Listen to the Pod Instead tier. And yeah, interesting you bring up like the difference in opinion on that. I feel like those specific movies we just had in that tier are kind of the ones that we only disagree on. As we go on, obviously we're going to disagree on some, but that was always like the biggest difference right there. Obviously, you said Stalker at 31, Chicken Little we disagreed on, The Wrong Missy, and even Grown Ups. So maybe those aren't technically like our worst movies because some of them like I like or you like, but like together we kind of disagree on them. So that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely our collective least favorites at the very least. Yeah, interesting to see Chicken Little, Paul Blart, and Stalker. I'm a lot higher on, and Grown Ups and Wrong Missy. You're a lot higher on, which is always cool to see. Now moving into a big chunk of movies that's really just kind of like the mid tier. There's some movies that probably are some of people's favorites in this chunk. Again, there's some you don't like, some that I don't like, but they kind of, I could see these movies all shifting and rotating amongst each other. We do have our first tie here. So for 43, we have to come to a decision. Is it going to be The Last Jedi or Spider-Man, both at 43? I've imagined I know what your answer is. So, but I'm curious,
Really,
Kody, what do you think is the worst movie between the two?
I think this is a really tough one. I'm not gonna lie, and it's funny because these were back to back episodes in season one. Episode 3, The Last Jedi, and then episode 4, the great guest Connor Van Overberg with Spider-Man. Obviously, I've been very, very against The Last Jedi for obvious reasons, but I feel like low-key it's the better movie than Spider-Man, which I can't believe I'm even saying. But I would guess that you agree as well, but I could be wrong.
I back it 100%. Listen, for me, even like realistically, The Last Jedi, I could have rated higher. This seems kind of low for me, even at a 48 personally. Spider-Man, we were both kind of more consensus about it being in that low 40 range. So I think The Last Jedi is definitely better than Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think Spider-Man is kind of the perfect movie to kick off like the mid tier, just because like it's definitely not good, but at the same time, like there is some good stuff in there, like the music, the performances. I think they nail like the characters mostly. Willem Dafoe is great, but I mean, oh my god, the dialogue's terrible, the acting's terrible. Like I feel like it is the definition almost of mid. The Last Jedi, everybody knows my opinion on it. Not a great film, but I'm happy it's down here in the rejects. But yeah,
Ryan Johnson is a better director than Sam Raimi. It's a better directed film.
so
That's my take.
that's a bold take. I probably agree. Actually, I'm coming around to Ryan Johnson. That movie's terrible. But anyways, you want to move on to the next film. What is this? 41, I believe, and
Yep.
kicking it right back to the Spider-Man, baby. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, coming in at an average of 45 between us. So kind of going back to back here on the Spider-Mans. Do you think that's a good spot for it?
I think it's a good spot because I agree it is better than the 2002 Spider-Man, not by a lot, because there's things that I dislike. Like I think in both of those movies, there's things I could point out as I like this part of this movie better, but I like this one of this movie better. So I think it's a pretty good spot because they're very similar, but I think it's slightly better than the 2002 version.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I had it rated a little bit higher than you. I did it at 47. You had it at 43. I feel like Loki, I actually kind of really like this movie. I think we're talking about last episode, guilty pleasure kind of stuff. And obviously, this movie is very bad. It's a mess, big studio interference. But I think there's a ton to talk about, and actually one of my favorite episodes. So I definitely recommend that one if you haven't seen it.
I was just gonna say that, and I'd say this probably about a lot of our episodes, but this
Right.
truly is one of my favorite episodes. I think even before recording it, it was one that like I was just so excited to talk about because there's so much to talk about with this movie,
Yeah,
good
it's
and bad.
definitely a good one. Absolutely. And let's just kick it right on to the 40th movie.
A very
And that
topical film.
is true. It's gonna have a Best Picture winner sequel, Top Gun. Coming
Is
in.
that hot take, Cody? Is it winning Best Picture?
Well, it's gonna get nominated for sure. If you haven't
Have
seen
you seen Maverick yet?
yes.
Okay.
I think you've asked me this on like 3 different episodes. I have seen Top Gun Maverick. I saw it in theaters. It's okay. It's better than the original, which we rated at 45 and a half. So just barely above the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think this is a good spot for it. We pretty much agreed on this movie wholeheartedly. Obviously, great soundtrack and everything, but definitely like deserves to be in the mid tier, I think.
I agree with that completely. It's like so 80s. It is the epitome
Oh
of the
yeah.
1980s of what a movie is. Um, Tom Cruise is a legend, a Scientologist legend, but the fact that here we are, in 2022, still talking about Top Gun Maverick and the impact that's had. It was a very topical episode to do at the time, and it's a lot of fun. Let's continue on into the top 40 with another childhood favorite from me, and that's going to be Holes.
I think this is a great spot for this movie. You rated it a little bit higher than me at 53, which I think is an abomination. But we got our average score at 47 and a half, which I think is respectable. But I think rounding out season one, this was a fun episode to do. We had a lot of talk about the kid actors, which may come up later. Are you a little disappointed? It's not higher, or do you think it's a good spot for Holes?
I do think it should be a little bit higher because look at the other 49 movies, Cody. You know what they don't have? They don't
But
have Dule Hill, Burton Guster himself in a starring performance. None of the other films have that, and I can fix that. That's all I can say.
that's a great point. I thought you were going to say the other guy, John Voight. What's his name? Mr. Man or something?
Mr. Sir, Mr.
Mr.
Sir, big Trump supporter, John Voight. Maybe a bit of a problematic cast at points. Shia LaBeouf obviously has had his issues. I think this is a really great like early 2000s Disney book adaptation for children. It's no, best picture winner like we say, but for what it is, you can't find movies in a similar vein that are this good. That's what I'll say. And it's extremely quotable.
Yeah, I think it's good for a kids movie for sure. But I don't know. I also did see on TikTok recently that Zero, I don't know if you saw this, was like responding to people like calling out like the onion department or whatever, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, I think this is a perfect spot for Holes, honestly. I do like it more than Top Gun, I think. Just nostalgia based. You're kind of right. Like for a kids movie, it does have like some complex stuff. So maybe on a revisit, maybe I would score it a little higher, other than John Voight's performance, which is again an abomination. I might keep saying it this episode, but he's terrible. But yeah, I think this is a good spot for it.
Justice for Sigourney Weaver. All right, we've got 4 movies here that are all tied with 48. So
Oh, wow.
we're gonna have some deliberations to make here. Those movies are Clueless, Interstellar, War Dogs, and Midsommar. Cody,
Wow.
where do you thinking off the rip? What's the worst one of these 4, maybe?
Oh man, that is tough. So, yeah, they're all ranked the exact same somehow at 48. I feel like, well, the one that I rated the lowest was Interstellar, but I think that's probably
That's
not
the
the
one
best
I
choice.
rated the highest, and the one you rated the highest, War Dogs, is the one I rated the lowest. So what do we do here?
So this gotta be tough. I would vote that I would vote Clueless the worst, I would say. But I would say Midsummer is also there as well. I would say those are probably the 2 worst.
That's what I wanted to kind of come at you with. I think because we were kind of closer on those 2, they should go a little bit lower. I think I would rather go Midsummer at 38, honestly.
Okay. I am 100% down for that. I mean, and weirdly enough, Clueless and Interstellar are both in season 2. Then War Dogs and Midsummer were back-to-back episodes in season 4. So we had back-to-back episodes of the exact same rating, which is fun. But yeah, I agree. Midsummer or Midsummer, however you want to say it. We talked about the episode, but I think that's deserved to be there. I think maybe if you look deeper, like this is probably the best movie out of these four. But like I don't look deeper in movies, so I think it deserves to be there.
Shout out to our former guest Abby Feiner for telling us that we completely misunderstood this movie. Midsommar, probably the best directed of those four. Maybe not. Maybe Interstellar. It's hard to say,
Yeah,
but it's just I don't know. It's boring at points. I think it's less exciting than these other three movies. You want to go Interstellar next, I imagine, or do you want to go Clueless next?
I say we can go Clueless.
All right.
Yeah, I should stick that in. And that was a really fun episode. Obviously, a great guest. Shout out Miss Mina Nagy, but she rated it much higher than us, so I'm glad that doesn't factor in. But yeah, it's mid. It's nostalgia more than anything, I think. But definitely a fun episode.
So here's a question, Kody.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Christopher Nolan or is it Todd Phillips? Who's better?
Weirdly enough, I think we should put Interstellar higher than War Dogs. I don't think by any means I can justify saying that War Dogs is a better movie than Interstellar. Maybe plot wise, third act wise, it's much better. But yeah, those are fairly close, I think. And the War Dog episode is a fun one, but the Interstellar episode is probably one of my favorites we've ever done. Shout out Aiden Cotter, who's a great guest. And he still talks about that today, where I kind of like ruined his favorite movie for him. So I take that with a lot of pride. But yeah, Interstellar, it definitely deserves to be in the mid. You rated it at 50, I had it at 46. So even you weren't crazy high on it. Even though, I mean, like technically it is probably one of the better films like made out of our 50, I'd say.
I think this Interstellar is one that, if you polled the average person on the street and said rank these 50 movies, this is probably way too low at 35. I know on Letterboxd there's a thing that you can do your four favorites, and Interstellar is like one of the movies with the highest percentage of like being in people's four favorites. Like people love Interstellar. Obviously you're not as high on it. And Aiden appreciates the movie a ton. I know our good friend Jackson is also a huge Interstellar fan. But shout out to Aiden, going to come back on the pod to talk Avatar Way of Water in the new year. So be on the lookout for that.
Okay, great guest. And we've had so many good guests. I think we need to do our dues a little bit and start bringing some of the best ones back. So I think we're going to start doing that. But yeah, shout out to Aiden, of course.
And moving on to our 34th highest film, which very topical. It is December as we record this. It's Elf, the only Christmas movie. Well, unless you count, Catch Me If You Can as a Christmas film, but the only official Christmas movie we've done. 34. It's getting big movement, big plays for the Purdue basketball team right now, and Caleb First. There's a lot of Elf content happening. It's very topical. So for that reason, maybe it should be higher. But as a movie, it's fine. It's okay. Not the best Christmas movie.
I think Christmas ranked. It's probably in like near the top 5 for me, which is pretty good, I think. And yeah, I think we have to do another Christmas-based episode. We kind of did a little Halloween. I think we could pick a couple great Christmas movies. I have a lot of favorites, but yeah, Elf. I think it's definitely mid, and it seems like we have a lot of season 2 picks, sort of in this mid. So maybe that's when like KHAP was at its most mid as well, season 2. But Elf's a fun one. Definitely a fun episode, I think.
Plenty to meme from that movie for sure. And another, speaking of memes, maybe the most memeable actor, Nick Cage in National Treasure is our pick for 33. National Treasure, Kody, you didn't know your history when we did our trivia questions. Do you regret not paying attention in school better or what?
Well, maybe a little bit, but I mean, in school is where I first saw National Treasure. So
Same, I think.
blame it on them. But this is probably the most surprising ranking for me. I'm surprised this is up here this high. Obviously, this is one of my personal favorites. I ranked it at 55. You at 44. But oh man, how can you not love this movie? Nick Cage at his best, I would say, and just a great supporting cast around him too. If you had asked me history questions like about what Nick Cage was ranting about in this movie, I probably would have gotten those right. General knowledge stuff, it's probably a little bit more iffy. But yeah, I'm very happy to see National Treasure, at least on the mid. I'm kind of surprised it wasn't on skip the movie episode. But yeah, definitely a good one.
Our teachers were showing us this movie rather than teaching us things, I guess, is what we can surmise from that.
I don't blame them. I think I saw the second one in school as well, and it's a lot more violent first one too. But hey, you just gotta respect the school system, I guess, because just car fights, or not car fights, car chases and gunfights. Middle school 101 in my book. So I back it.
Benjamin Franklin Gates, maybe one of the better character names in all the films. Unfortunately, no award from that, but we got to shout that out.
True. I can't think of a better name off the bat, so I'm giving that award right now. we can move on.
Well, there might be a better one in this next three of ties, because we have Napoleon Dynamite, The Truman Show, and The Princess Bride, all tied with 51.5 points.
Very interesting. These ties are actually pretty tough, because I feel like, I mean, obviously, we think they're all in similar, vein. A couple great guest episodes: Napoleon Dynamite, Truman Show. Also kind of interesting, season 1, season 2, and season 3. So a lot of variance there. I would probably say, I mean, not to be biased, but I would say the best movie out of those is The Princess Bride, which I ranked at 63. And we disagreed on a lot. You ranked it at 40. So what are you thinking? Where do you want to place The Princess Bride at? Because that was your lowest ranked one.
If I was going to go these three, I would say Napoleon Dynamite is the worst, then The Princess Bride, then The Truman Show, is how I would re-rank them. What do you think about that? Can you do that, or are you not okay with The Truman Show dropping?
You would put The Truman Show at the best one or the worst one?
The best one.
Oh, I would say it's probably the worst one there. I say we go Napoleon Dynamite, Princess Bride. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I say we go, well, shit. Yeah, I say we go Napoleon Dynamite, Truman Show, Princess Bride. But we could put The Princess Bride below all of them. I wouldn't care. Princess Bride worst, Truman Show, and then Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay, you think Napoleon's the best of the three? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the Truman Show is actually that good.
All right. So for those that may have been confused about what just happened, 32 is going to be The Princess Bride, 31 will be The Truman Show, and then our 30th best movie is going to be Napoleon Dynamite. Kind of just talking about all these. Let's talk about The Princess Bride first. Obviously, you love this movie. It's the highest ranked one of your films so far, with a 63.
Wow.
You saw it as a child. You loved Fred Savage's work in it. Me personally did not see it until I was, 21 when we recorded the episode, and it did not have the same magical effect on me. I was not impressed by the work of Mr. Savage as a young child, I can say.
Still dissing my boy Fred Savage here. I didn't put him in the best child acting category just because I know you would not be too happy with that. But yeah, I'll tell you what, 63 and back in season 1, it's pretty high ranking. I think it is deserved up there just because of, rewatchability, quotable, super fun performances. I mean, I could rattle off all the quotes again. I'm sure nobody wants to hear them. But shout out Andre the Giant. I mean, what a guy, and legendary performance. R.I.P. brother. But yeah, I think these three are pretty tough. It's kind of the best of kind of the mid tier almost. But The Princess Bride, I mean, back in season 1, I don't even think we knew what we were doing. So I think that would be a fun one to revisit. The Truman Show, which I think is a pretty fun episode. I'm kind of surprised that I rated it higher than you. I rated it at 54. You were at 49. But I feel like looking back on these, like, spoiler, I am going to put The Truman Show in like the most overrated movies. So what do you think about it? Because you did rate it lower than me, but I feel like I don't really love that movie.
Well, yeah, it is interesting to see that yours is higher. Something very, I guess we could address now as we do this. When I did these rankings, Princess Bride was our second episode, so we were still kind of figuring where we were at. We had done Gone Girl and Princess Bride. I think maybe you went a little high with 63 early on. But something that I did was that I was constantly ranking these movies against each other as I was doing this. So me putting The Truman Show at 49 isn't necessarily because I think it's, because I think it's a 49 out of 69, but also because I had ranked other movies as like a 50 and a 48, and I wanted to put The Truman Show in between it, which maybe causes some issues in our ranking system. And I start with 5 stars and then I try and get, this for me, if you did from highest ranking to lowest ranking, it would be representative of my favorite to my least favorite, but the numerical values assigned may not necessarily be 100% accurate at all times.
Right. And I think that's true about mine as well, with The Princess Bride. Like 63, I think that's easily in my top 10. So like our rankings don't really matter. It's more about the number in this situation, which is funny. But yeah, and then rounding out with Napoleon Dynamite, I think that's an underrated comedy. I think it deserved to be there. And that was the first time I'd seen that movie, in season 3 when we did that. But yeah, I'm actually a big fan of Napoleon Dynamite, and I think it could have been a little higher possibly.
Yeah, I mean, Napoleon Dynamite is extremely culturally significant and was a huge moment for independent films in the early 2000s. So throwing it at 30, while it's not, my favorite movie by any means, I think this is a pretty good spot for it.
Definitely. And yeah, that rounds out what the bottom 20 movies. So that's fun. We can definitely jump into number 29, which at just above those, barely, with our average ranking at 52, is Men in Black, the season 4 Kickstarter. What do you think about that?
Well, Kody, I love Men in Black. I grew up on Men in Black. You didn't grow up on Men in Black. You've kind of taken your MIB journey in the last couple months since doing this episode. But I think this movie is just a ton of fun to watch. I mean, Will Smith fighting aliens. Maybe it's a little propaganda, sure, but yeah, it's like Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones wearing suits and looking cool and erasing people's memories. It's just a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think that episode was a fun one as well. Shout out Men in Black 2, which was on this list. Would have already appeared as a stinker, but I still haven't checked out Men in Black 3. Josh Brolin, I think I'm missing out. I think this is a good spot for Men in Black. We can keep moving along here to 28, which again just barely is above Men in Black at our average score of 52.5 instead of 52. And that would be another season 4 recent episode, the original Halloween. I think this is actually a perfect spot for Halloween, just barely missing out on the top 25. But I mean, it is a horror classic, and there's a lot of issues with it. It hasn't aged the best, I don't think, but I think it's still like a very solid flick. So I think it's a perfect spot for it, honestly.
Yeah, it was a low budget horror film in the 80s, and the fact of the matter is, like, people can just make things look better now a little bit to a certain degree, and they know, I'm a person who sees a ton of new movies. I think this year I've almost seen 90 releases from 2022, and I kind of I harp on myself a little bit because, like, sometimes I rank movies that are released this year higher than other people, and I think the thing is just because it's just like people are better at making. I know this. It's because it's not true to a certain, but like movies are easier to make good. So like something that's new and more modern to me is just automatically gets a little bit of a bump just by the nature of, one, it's the time period I'm living in. One, they like know what they're doing. They have better technology. They can make stuff for cheaper. I think acting is better a little bit, at least the way people act on screen. Our editing systems have gotten better. Obviously, effects have become, much stronger. There's a lot of great stuff about Halloween, and it started a huge franchise. And quite honestly, it's the best of all the Halloween movies. So maybe that discounts the theory that we make better movies today, because the Halloween ends that came out this year was an absolute stinker.
I've not checked that out, sadly, but I would argue as well, Halloween 3, maybe better. Classic Halloween. You haven't seen that one. Shout out Stonehenge. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I think from like a technical standpoint, like movies today are just better, like you were saying. And yeah, you can see that.
And I know that that's dumb because like there's all the greatest movies are a little bit older, and it's like we're making a bunch of trash now, and like all that exists is IP movie. Like, so it's two sides of a coin to a certain degree.
Well, I mean, this turned out to be IP trash anyways. I mean,
true.
Franchise. But I mean, yeah, you're definitely right. Like the acting and just like the camera work. I haven't even seen it, but in like Halloween Ends, I'm sure it's much better than like the original Halloween. Even though like this is a much better movie, I would say it doesn't have the advantage of being made like in the modern day, where it's like, oh, like they're using a really nice camera and the director knows what he's doing, and like these are all actual good actors. It's not made on a shoestring budget. So I do understand what you're saying, but still, I mean, movies back in the '70s, probably a lot of them are better than the garbage we're pumping out today. But yeah,
Carpenter is somebody whose films I've really delved into for the first time this past year. And I think he's begun to emerge as one of my more favorite directors. So it's cool to kind of go on that journey through some of his movies. He's a master for sure. You know what he was doing. In our next three, we have another three-way tie with some more IP trash, Terminator 2. And then, of course, Booksmart and Uncut Gems.
wow.
What do you think is the worst of these three, Kody?
This is actually difficult for me just because these were three of my picks and three of my personal favorite movies. I would say you rated Booksmart the lowest. I would probably say that is the worst out of these three. It is tough though because they're all such different films, but I probably would put Booksmart the lowest out of those three.
I think here's the thing. Because of Don't Worry, Darling, I think we got to go
Yeah,
Booksmart at 27. If Don't Worry,
true.
Darling's not released this year, which of course, Way of Water might make us want to put T2 down further if that's bad. But I would say let's not bet against big Jim Cameron himself. So yeah, I think Booksmart at 27 is a good spot for it.
Yeah, I agree. And sadly, Olivia Wilde, she missed on take number two with Don't Worry, Darling. Hopefully, she can get her hands on a project not particularly surrounded around controversy and more just trying to make a good film, which I think she did with Don't Worry, Darling. But there were just a lot of outside factors that I think did not help that film. And yeah, funny enough, you're talking about Jimmy Cameron. I low key think The Way of Water is actually going to be really good. It is like 3.5 hours or something ridiculous. But James Cameron, he's done like a bunch of interviews, and there's a specific GQ one as well, which you could even plug if you want. But him just talking about how like the first Avatar movie, he even knows like he's like, oh, it's more of the spectacle. It's not about the characters. And he's talking about the sequel being an actual character piece. So I think that'll be interesting. Obviously the visuals are what made that movie all its money, and you kind of say the same thing about T2, but I think like the story and the actual performance is what carries it. I personally would put T2 ahead of Uncut Gems, but I can defer to you. I know you don't like Uncut Gems that much. Actually, I actually don't think you like either of that much. But what were you thinking?
I agree. I think T2 above Uncut Gems. I don't want to step on the James Cameron conversation too much because, like I said, we're going to talk Way of Water with Aiden, and we may even do an original Avatar episode before then. So I'm sure we will talk about it a ton. You sent me the GQ video of like breaking down his career, which is a great one to watch. And there's also a great GQ interview that you can read or listen to. It's about 30-minute listen. That's really good and a lot of great insights that we will get into on a later episode of the podcast. But definitely check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely excited for that. And I think we just keep moving forward.
I do want to say
25.
Uncut Gems. We should talk about that for a second. Uncut Gems. I at 26 for Uncut Gems, like you said, I'm not as high on this movie. I think a big thing I harped on is just like the sound mixing. I'm not a huge fan of. You can barely like hear or understand what Adam Sandler's talking about through a lot of the movie. I'm not the only person with this complaint. I know that for a fact. Sound mixing is not great, but there's some recent rumors, information that the Sandman and the Safdies are going to be potentially having a reunion in an upcoming film, which I'm definitely excited about because they're good filmmakers, and him in a dramatic role and in kind of the roles he's been taking in the last couple of years have really excited me more to see his later stages of work. And great awards acceptance speech at the Gotham Awards just a couple weekends ago.
Really, I actually didn't see that, but yeah, shout out the Safdies. I think they're one of the more underrated like duo directors working today. Obviously, you have like the Coens and the Wachowskis and the Russos or whatever, but nobody talks about the Safdies. Benny Safdie, I think he's gonna be in the new Nolan film Oppenheimer as well. So shout out.
Who isn't?
So he's allowed to be in it.
Yeah.
Uncut Gems, I think, is one of the more underrated flicks on our list. So shout out the Sandman.
Obviously, a huge year for Julia Fox as well, and and the people surrounding her life that don't need to get mentioned on this podcast.
Dude, I really wanted to put her down for like best actress for a category, but I just couldn't do it. She is good in the movie.
She is good. She is good in that movie.
She's such a bad actress, I think. But yeah, shout out Uncut Jams. I was Benny Safdie's muse, but yeah, let's continue on.
I got to see Benny Safdie in person a couple weeks ago at the New York Film Festival. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty sick. Gina Naga.
Yeah, I said, what's up? All right. 24, another horror movie, a recent addition that we talked about, of course, with Abby Feiner, as we mentioned earlier in the episode. This movie may be too low here at 24, honestly. And I think that may purely be because of just one, there's a ton of great movies in this next 23. But also just it's a horror film, and maybe we don't appreciate that as much as some of the others, but definitely the closest thing to a modern horror classic that we have. And James Wan, we gushed over him in the episode, but we love James Wan.
No, great director, and this is a really good film as well. I think our guest rating with Abby was much higher than ours at 65, which I think is pretty justified, actually. But yeah, another great episode. I think one of our longer ones, and one of my favorite guests personally. I think we need to have her on back as well. Maybe for another horror episode, just because, like you said, maybe we don't give that genre its due on this pod too much. But I think 24 is a good spot for it. I feel like the next sort of 10 films, we can honestly just switch anywhere. I think they're all kind of in the same category. But funny enough, if you want to move on to the next film at 23, we actually have Fast Five ahead of The Conjuring, which I personally love. Obviously, this is going back to season 1 as well, so that maybe by the rankings are a little bit off, but we came to the average score of 54.5. I was a little bit higher on it at 61, while you were at 48. What do you think? Do you think this is an abomination? This is this high, or are you okay with it?
Well, I think it's cool to see a fast movie next to The Conjuring. Obviously, this is not the one that James Wan directed, but he is a director of the Fast franchise. I rated this movie.
I don't even know.
No, Justin Lin did this one. He did Furious 7.
No, you're right.
Fast Five is one of the best action movies to come out in the 2010s. It's also a pretty damn good heist movie. Turning point for the Fast and Furious franchise. Maybe a turning point for the worst in some regards. But the turning point itself is very well executed. And I think this is a good spot for it because it's very much a big blockbuster fanfare movie, and maybe doesn't have a lot of deeper meaning or subtext to it. It's very much the text is the text, but it's a ton of fun. And Vin Diesel, man, Groot himself.
Vin Diesel. Yeah, Vin's okay. But I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think this film, I think it is underrated a little bit just because of, what came after it. I feel like if you didn't have any other Fast and Furious sequels, this would be heralded as like a great action film. So underrated in that standpoint. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it probably should be a little bit lower in our list, if I'm being completely honest. But it's just one of my personal favorite movies of all time. And it is campy in parts. But I mean, hey, shout out The Rock, franchise saver.
I was just about to say, not only a turning point for the Fast and Furious franchise, but a turning point for Dwayne The Rock Johnson as well. Yeah. And again, maybe for the worst, maybe for the best. It depends which side of his wallet you're on, I guess.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it didn't really work out because how much money did they lose on Shazam? If The Rock was...
You mean Black Adam? Get it right. Come on.
Whatever. Yeah, I'm tired, whatever. But, but hey, if The Rock was never in Fast Five, Shazam would have never lost $100 million for Warner Brothers. So,
honestly, Black Adam very well may have been greenlit before Fast Five was even filmed. He's been trying to make that movie for over a decade. So let's move on to our 22nd film. Unfortunately, it's not the 20th film, but it is the movie that we did an episode last April. On April 20th, I think it came out, Dazed and Confused. A fun episode to record for sure, and a fun one to talk about. Problematic at points.
Yes.
But extremely rewatchable. Very much a vibe movie. It fits well into the Richard Linklater canon of films. And gave us Matthew McConaughey, even if he was a total sleazebag in the film.
Yeah, McConaughey's character we don't talk about that, but this is just an iconic film and one of Linklater's best, I think, which is saying a lot. And weirdly enough, we agreed on the rating for this one. We put it directly at 56. So that's a lot of fun. But yeah, I do kind of wish it was at, 20, just to be in that spot. But I think 22 is almost a perfect spot of like a good movie, but not one of the best ones we've looked into, but it's undeniably like still a really good movie. Yeah.
All right. And let's move on to our 21st and 20th films
Oh,
that
wow,
are currently tied.
we have a lot of ties incoming here, so this will be fun.
Palm Springs and Dune are both tied with a 57. For me, right off the bat, I gotta say, I think Dune's the better movie here. Palm Springs is of 2020 is an incredible standout movie that a ton of people didn't see. It kind of popped up on streaming. Obviously, has the mom from How I Met Your Mother and the lead singer of The Lonely Island as the two stars. But just a fun time loop film, a good rom com. But I think Dune is the better, like technically and acting. Like you can't say Dune isn't the better movie here, right, Kody?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, Denis behind the camera with Oscar Isaac and Timothy Chalamet. It's hard to deny that that's a better movie than Palm Springs, which is a ton of fun. And out of those two episodes, I would probably recommend Palm Springs just because we do have a great guest. Shout out Jackson again. And he was a little bit higher than us on this movie, but I believe I think her name's Christina Milioti, something like that. Shout out her. Nobody knows her name, but she actually is a pretty good actress, I think, and that's probably like one of her best roles she's ever had. But yeah, I mean, Dune from a technical standpoint even is one of the most beautiful films I think on this list. So I would 100% agree with you and put it ahead.
All right. So now as we break into the top 20, Dune was our 20th film. We've got another three-way tie here between
Wow.
Gone Girl, Her, and Spider-Man No Way Home. Gone Girl, obviously, the very first episode we did. It's a KHAP classic, kind of kicked everything off. And then Her, another season one movie, a personal favorite of mine. I love Her. And then Spider-Man No Way Home, which was just released almost a year ago. So, what are you thinking off the bat, Kody? Where would you put these three films?
It is tough because that Gone Girl episode is like you said, a KHAP classic, the all-time great category of Kody versus. It was only effective really in that one episode, but shout out to it. I would say maybe we have a little bit of season one bias with Gone Girl. I would say out of the three of those, I would put that the lowest, and then Spider-Man No Way Home would probably be next in line for me.
Can I pitch? Here's the thing: Spider-Man No Way Home. In seeing it in a theater, and just kind of as an experience, and 20 years of Spider-Man movies, kind of coming to a culmination. That stuff's great. But as we talked about in the episode, there are a lot of problems with this movie. It's not super well written. There's just things that don't make a lot of sense. Whereas I think Gone Girl, on the opposite, is an extremely well written movie. And obviously, David Fincher, I think, is a better director than John Watts. Personally, I would go Spider-Man No Way Home as the worst of these three. Can we make that happen, maybe, Kody?
I will definitely agree to that. The Finch man, I don't think Gone Girl's is best. But yeah, you probably are right. I mean, nostalgic goggles. Obviously, everybody has them on with Spider-Man: No Way Home, and plot wise, there was a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense in that movie. So yeah, I back it. Gone Girl though, another one. Like I might actually go back and listen to that episode just because we're talking about it. I think that's one of the most fun ones we had, and that's also like super nostalgic for us. I think sort of in the same way that Spider-Man is for everybody else. But yeah, we haven't talked about Her much. I know, obviously, Joaquin Phoenix, unbelievable performance there. But I think an underrated ScarJo as well. And kind of just a really cool direction in the movie. Like, really cool costume and setting wise, I think, putting it in the future a little bit. Even like his job is super futuristic. But yeah, obviously, it's one of your favorites. Do you want to shout anybody out from Her?
Incredible production design, like you said, just the design of the city, of this like futuristic type world that it builds is just really incredible. Also, just like at the core, it's like a really interesting story about love and loneliness. And like you said, Joaquin Phoenix is great. So is Scarlett Johansson. Both of them acting against nothing, essentially. I mean, Scarlett Johansson filmed all of her stuff in post after the fact, and Joaquin filmed with a completely different woman at the time. So really incredible work that they were able to make that work and make that a believable relationship.
Yeah, 100%. And I said we keep kicking along here to our 16th ranked film, which shooting back to season 2, School of Rock. And this was the first time I checked out this film, was your pick. But I think this is 100% deserves being here. I think possibly we could have had it even a little bit higher. And it is like the ranking specifically at 58.5 is very close to a lot of other films. I think deservedly so. But yeah, your boy Jack Black. I mean, this is one of the most fun movies I think we've talked about.
Yeah, I recently saw that Jack Black was saying he'd love to do a sequel. I say we
Yeah,
definitely should make it happen. Miranda Cosgrove in an early star-making performance. Again, not going to get nominated for Best Child Actress by any means, but
no,
really, really fun stuff. Again, it's another Linklater movie, which is weird to think about to a certain degree. It maybe isn't the first one when you think Richard Linklater. You don't think School of Rock. You probably think Boyhood, Dazed and Confused, the Before trilogy. He's obviously a great director. But again, for just like being kind of this like kids movie about music, it really holds up really well and insanely rewatchable. I love this movie.
yeah, and like you said, I feel like it is maybe my favorite Linklater film. But again, like with the public thing, if you ask about Richard Linklater, I think 100% I'd be like, oh, Dazed and Confused, just because of that iconicness. But yeah, and what he does so well, I think, is as well as incorporating music into his films. Obviously with this, and obviously with Dazed and Confused, but soundtrack of School Rock. I mean, spoiler it again for the categories, but it's going to be up there for me. One of the best.
Yeah, and that movie doesn't work without Jack Black by any
No,
means. Jack Black is literally the character is basically written for him. He was born to play that role, and nobody else could quite do it. And of course, we have to shout out our boy Mike White, the man himself.
true. Yeah, Mike White, great Survivor player. He's also putting the work in for HBO right now, or with the White Lotus, which was inspired actually from his time on Survivor, which is a really fun story. But yeah, Ned Schneebly, shout out that guy. Shout out Sarah Silverman as well.
Joan Cusack.
Yeah, yeah, Joan Cusack. Again, not a great performance from her, but just a really really fun movie. I think one of the better ones.
All right, we got another tie. And for me, the answer here is easy, despite what my ranking says. We've got The Martian and Annihilation. I think we got to say the Martian is the better movie between the two, though, right?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Annihilation, again, probably one of my favorite episodes. But just
A
the
movie neither
insanity.
of us had seen going into it,
Yeah,
which may be the only instance of that for at least a movie with just the two of us without a guest.
yeah, that's probably true actually, which is a lot of fun. And I mean, just the the story is bonkers. So one of my favorites to dive into. And but I would say The Martian is a better film. Just from a writing standpoint, acting standpoint, it's hard to argue against the brilliance of that film. I mean, Ridley Scott. We haven't done too many of his movies actually, surprisingly, because I'm a massive fan. But I mean, Matt Damon, the cast as well, I think is endless and just so good. Shout out Donald Glover for his two scenes. He's ridiculously good. I don't care what you say in that movie, but I would definitely put it above Annihilation. But I think 59. They're ranked at 15 and 14. Is very respectable. And I think good spots for both of them.
Annihilation, if you want to hear an episode of Kody and I giving our analysis, like our real in-depth of what
Yeah,
does this movie mean, probably the most we've ever gotten into that. And we disagreed about the message of the movie at the end of it, which was definitely fun. If you asked me to recount the plot to you, not sure I could do that here as we are a couple months after having seen it, but a really beautiful film. And Alex Garland is an incredible filmmaker as well. But I got to say, The Martian is the better movie. I love the book. It's probably my favorite book of all time. Andy Weir, incredibly funny movie, which I think is underlooked for how funny of a movie it is. Donald Glover, I love, despite maybe not being great. But the cast as a whole is fantastic, as you said.
yeah, that ensemble is definitely tough to beat. But yeah, I say we keep moving swiftly on here into number 13. and another recent, release with The Batman. I think this is a great spot for this. Obviously, I was super, super high on this movie. Put it at 63. You had it at 58. Yeah. All in all, I mean, just the tone and sort of the feel and look of this movie, I think is what really makes it great for me. But yeah, what do you think? Should this be a little higher? Should a lower? It's a good spot.
I think as we get into this top 13, we've officially hit our 60 threshold. I think these are like our really good movies. I would say we were going to do top 10, but honestly, I'd say let's make it 13, caps 13 faves.
I like it.
The Batman, I think, is most harmed by the fact that it was released so early in this year at such a weird time. I can imagine if this movie had come around the time in which it's set, which is end of October, beginning of November, I think it would have been a lot more successful. I think it would have had a better chance at some awards races, and it would kind of stick with us a little bit more. This movie is a little long. I think its runtime is its biggest fault, and it would probably be a lot higher if it was just cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It is a little long. Maybe they played the Nirvana song a few too many times. And also, the villain's not great either. There's kind of a lot about this movie that we didn't like, but like just from a technical standpoint, it is ridiculously well made. And yeah, I think this is a good spot for it. I love Caps 13, and this is a great kickoff to it. This was actually going forward. This was the only movie that you did not rate at least a 60. So going forward, you have everyone at 60. I had it at 63, obviously, and there's a couple other I had below 60 that are still on the list. But yeah, going forward, it looks like placement wise for you, like the Batman's in a pretty good spot.
For sure. Let's move on to 12, which is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Kody, what do you think about Ferris Bueller? Do you think this is a good spot for it at 12?
Bueller, I'd say from my standpoint, possibly is a little too high. Really fun episode. Again, a great guest with Jack, who did rate it a 69 out of 69, which I can only respect. But we had it come in at 62 for the average score. I mean, again, what I was talking about with School of Rock, just the fun. This movie is unbelievably fun. It's another vibe movie, but it's not directed by Linklater, sadly. But I mean, the three characters, like that core three in a film with that great chemistry, I think that's hard to find. And then just going into the coming of age, high school flicks, during that time period, I think this is the one that stands out the most. And it is like fairly artistic, even that like the art scene wherever they're at the museum, like out of context of the movie, like some of their arty stuff is kind of weird, but in context of the movie, it's like low-key brilliant. So yeah, definitely one that was a lot of fun to talk about, but I think it's very deserving to be in the top 12.
As somebody who loves the city of Chicago, I think this movie utilizes its setting in such an important way, and maybe better than any of these other movies on the list, or any movie ever. Definitely one of the best movies set in the city of Chicago. It really captures that air. I think the parade scene is fantastic. Twist and Shout is great. And I think just as a general premise of like, who hasn't faked being sick to stay home, right? Like, it's so relatable. And then of course Ferris Bueller just takes it to the next level of like, if you could do anything on that day you stayed home from school, like what would you do? And it's just an incredibly fun movie to watch.
Yeah. Also, shout out Charlie Sheen for a baseball scene, and the girl. What's the girl's name from Dirty Dancing? Who plays Ferris's sister?
Sister, yeah.
I can't remember. She's really good though.
Jennifer Grey.
Jennifer Grey, obviously, yeah. But that's one of her for like first performances as well. Just a lot of like really good like young performances in that film, I think. But yeah, definitely good one. I say we keep it moving on to number 11, which actually may be a little bit low. And that's one of your favorites, Lady Bird, coming in at 63 average score. Looks like I put it at 59 all the way back in season 2, which is a little low, I think. But yeah, obviously this is one of your favorites.
I've talked about Lady Bird on this podcast, on other podcasts, so many times. It's hard to really find another thing to say about it. Greta Gerwig, she's got Barbie coming out next year, and I'm hype. That's what I'll say. She's also starring in White Noise alongside Adam Driver. Obviously, that movie is written and directed by her husband, Noah Baumbach. I'm just a huge fan of her and of all her work. My recommendation will be check out a movie called Frances Ha, which is written and directed by Noah Baumbach, written both by Baumbach and Gerwig. And it's basically about a Gerwig-esque character in her late 20s. She plays the titular character, Frances Ha. I don't know if I even said the title of the movie, but Frances Ha, she plays Frances. Yeah, she does. She plays Frances in the movie, but it is very reminiscent of her life, and in a lot of ways is almost a sequel or a spiritual successor to what Lady Bird is. It obviously comes out a few years before Lady Bird, but if you want the canon of Lady Bird to continue, go check out Frances Ha. But Lady Bird, I love it. It's one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah. And Francis, I've not seen it, but that is on my list of what to check out. So I definitely agree. But yeah, I had it at 59, like I said. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Ohio State should have buzzed weird. All right, anyway. Yeah, Francis, it's on my list. But I rated it at 59 back then. Which I think is a little bit low.
But we're standing by it. We're sticking with it. It's 11.
We are.
Just outside the top 10.
I would say this is deserving to be in the top 10. But if we want to move on to our 10th ranked movie, that is The Departed. And you cannot move The Departed out of the top 10. So I agree completely. Average score here, just barely above Lady Bird at 63.5. But oh man, how can you not love this movie? I wanted to nominate all of the awards for The Departed. Best director, best writing, best actor, best actress. This is one of my favorite movies, and I don't think Scorsese gets enough credit for it. So I'm glad it, made it into our top 10, even though going all the way back to season 1. And yeah, Matt Damon. You could go on and on. Alec Baldwin. The other Boston guy, Mark Wahlberg, is actually good in it. Surprisingly, like I said, could talk about this movie all day. But
Vera Farmiga,
true.
Martin Sheen,
one of your top 5 working actresses as well. So really, nothing. I can't find any flaws in this movie. I don't think so. It's got to be in the top 10.
It might be higher if it wasn't for the stupid fucking rat shot at the end. That's all I can say. The Departed's great. Outside of that, one of the best endings in all movies. I think back to the first time I saw this movie because it was actually in our hilltop apartment. I think Jake was visiting, or it was right after Jake had visited, and he was discussing, what is the greatest movie ending of all time. And he and you both said, "Oh, The Departed's definitely in there." And I was like, I've never seen it. So then we had to go and watch it, and I instantly loved it. So it was great that we got a chance to do it on the podcast later.
100%. And I say we keep it rolling. I believe our next couple picks, we do have another tie, correct?
Yeah, so we've got ties all the way out for these last couple. So first we've got a tie, all tied at 64. The Shawshank Redemption, Inception, and Goodfellas. I mean, at this point, like this top 10, I think we could probably put in any order. So we shouldn't, try and overthink any of this too much. For me,
it's difficult. Yeah.
I think I would go, man, I don't know, Kody. I might be okay with putting Inception as the worst. You have it ranked as your least favorite of these 3. I have it as my favorite, but I think in comparison, I would be okay. Movie wise, I think Goodfellas and Shawshank are both better movies. I might not like them as much, but I think they're better movies.
Yeah, I would probably. I mean, like you said, it's pretty pretty difficult. I don't know. I think Inception is up there for me. I think Goodfellas is probably the best. I would be fine with Inception or Shawshank, really in any order there. So if you want to bump it up, I said we can, but I'll leave it up to you. We can move Inception pretty much wherever you want there.
Because I know Leo is going to get his love, and I know Nolan is going to get his love later on. I'm okay with throwing Inception at 9.
All right, I say we do that.
Because I think, again, it's not the best Leo performance. It's not the best Nolan movie here. I love Inception. Again, it's one of my favorites of all time, as many of these movies are. And it was a really good conversation we had with Jake Hughes, one of the Jacob Hughes.
One of the Jake Hughes, yeah. Too many Jacob Hughes on this podcast, I think. But yeah, I mean, Shawshank as well. Another guest episode, obviously. Shout out Golden Lord. And then Goodfellas was season 4 one. It's pretty recent. I mean, all 3 of those are film classics. Definitely go check those out. And yeah, a lot of praise and fun discussions, I think, in those pods. But it's getting hard as we come down to nitty gritty here. I mean, having those at 9, 8, and 7 are all very deserving, I think.
All right. Yeah. So just to re-clarify, like you said, 987, Inception 9, Shawshank 8, Goodfellas 7. Rest in peace to Ray Liotta. He does have another performance coming out in February. I think his final performance. Are you familiar with what this movie is going to be, Kody?
No, I have no idea.
All right. Well, it's a movie based on a true story
Uh,
about a plane carrying some illegal contraband that somewhere or another it goes down and into a forest, and there's a mammal, maybe
oh,
a grizzly bear, that ingests some of the contraband, and
uh,
we end up with the Elizabeth Banks directed film Cocaine Bear coming out in February. Ray Liotta's final performance. Are you excited for that movie?
I wouldn't say excited. That's an interesting final performance, and it's a really interesting directorial performance from Elizabeth Banks. I didn't know either of those. I have seen some of the content for this movie. It looks like a lot of fun, but it kind of just looks like a sci-fi movie as well. So I don't know. If it's not on the Sci-Fi Channel in like 6 months, I'll be very surprised. But yeah, hey, Ray Liotta, might as well give it one more go around.
According to his IMDb, there are a couple other movies. Cocaine Bear is completed. There's In Substance, which it says is, or sorry, The Substance, which is in production. Dangerous Waters in post production, and then El Tonto, which is also completed. Hard to say how much of a role or like where they were at in production when he passed away. So maybe not his final performance, but definitely one of the last major ones for him. Which, unfortunate way to go out with Cocaine Bear.
True. well, well, maybe he's really good at it. But yeah, true. Goodfellas, he's probably not going to live up to that. But one of the greats, and RIP. But yeah, I guess excited for Cocaine Bear just for that, but not really.
So we got another tie here for our next two films. One of
Oh
them is going to
wow.
be just outside the top five looking in. Will it be Good Will Hunting or The Prestige? I know where I want to go, but I'm curious what your thoughts are, Kody. We both ranked these actually opposite. So I had Good Will Hunting 66. You had it 65. You had The Prestige 66. I had it 65.
Yeah, and again, another couple good episodes from season 3. Shout out Jake Ross, who again rated Good Will Hunting 69 out of 69. If you're a guest coming on our show and you're bringing like your all-time favorite movie, you better get 69 out of 69. That's all I'm saying. But oh man, this is unbelievably difficult. Two of my favorite movies. I would put The Prestige ahead. I would guess you would put Good Will Hunting ahead.
Which
But
is what happened. So it's
yes.
crazy.
Is that what you were saying?
I was.
I mean, this is for
Here's what else.
65,
Actually, okay.
so it's
I
not
was
that important.
I was gonna say Good Will Hunting should go ahead of The Prestige, but
Mhm.
The Prestige was not produced by the Weinstein Company, so for that reason, we'll rank it higher. Fuck Harvey Weinstein, and that is what dilutes that movie down to 6, unfortunately. So we'll go Good Will Hunting at 6, The Prestige at 5.
I back it. Keep Harvey out of our top 5.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're okay with our top 5.
And
Luckily,
yeah, to talk a little bit more about Prestige as well. I mean, this probably is my second favorite movie of all time, if I'm being completely honest. One of Nolan's best. Christian Bale, one of his best. Hugh Jackman's ridiculous. ScarJo as well. I mean, we can go on and on. David Bowie is, out of his mind. By far his best performance. And yeah, I think just not one of the films that, Nolan is super recognized for. A lot of his like early stuff, Memento, even the Prestige, I feel like it's forgotten a little bit, even though it is ridiculous good and some of the best stuff in the past like 20 years. But yeah, the Prestige, just the magic trick of a movie, and I don't think it gets much more perfect.
Prestige is a movie I recently rewatched again with Mina for the first time. It'll always hold a special place in my heart, all the way back from like that very first time I watched it. Because even when you know the twist, it's still extremely enjoyable to see. I think it just because of box office commercial success is probably where it just wasn't as successful as some of his later works. It wasn't the extreme hit the Inception was, or that Inception was. And in 2006, it was going up against the Edward Norton classic, The Illusionist. I mean, 2 magician movies 1 year. How are you supposed to make it work?
Yeah, The Illusionist is not a good flick if you've seen that, but there
It
should be
has
more
Paul
magic movies.
Giamatti though.
True. The Rhino. I am the Rhino. but there should be more magic movies. Just don't release them like within 6 months of each other, you know. But yeah, Now You See Me 3, hopefully coming out soon. But I think The Prestige is like one of the most rewatchable dramas of all time. And same with Good Will Hunting, honestly. But just because like the twist is so good, and the more you watch it, like the more you actually understand the film. Like on first watch, you don't even understand the film, I feel like, which is super interesting and something you don't see a lot. But yeah, I say we keep chugging forward. This is gonna be super difficult as we go along. We have another tie, Rubino, at 4-3. We have two films tied at 66, and those would be Moonlight and Arrival. Again, these are the two films that I rated the highest. So this is going to be difficult. I might have to lean on you in our thinking.
Well, this is tough. Two movies. This is really extremely tough. Two movies that came out at very similar times, just a year or two apart, both from prolific directors. Obviously, one of them was received better at the awards, but it's really tough for me. I would go Moonlight ahead of Arrival, but I know Arrival is, maybe your favorite movie of all time, or at least one of your favorites, top three, top four. Yeah, I would say probably Moonlight. It's really tough because they're both expertly directed movies. I think the acting in Moonlight and the emotional I mean, they're both very emotional movies. But I think for me, Moonlight's a more important story, and that's why I would rather see it at three.
Yeah. And I actually back that. I still put Arrival at 4 and Moonlight at 3. But yeah, it is unbelievably difficult because Arrival, it's no doubt my favorite movie of all time. Both of them just unbelievably directed, I think. I think Moonlight maybe has a slight edge, and I agree with you, it's like in the writing, in the acting. Marshall Ali, got to shout him out. I think just like also the child performances in Moonlight is really astounding. And tell you what, anything Barry Jenkins does going forward, I'm excited for. I know he's got a bunch of stuff lined up, but I mean, you also have to talk about Denis Villeneuve as well. I think he's the best director working today. I don't think it's particularly close, and I think this is a masterpiece. You know, emotionally, Moonlight may have a little bit of an edge, but again, like you have such a sick twist in Arrival. It's tough to compare the two because they're so different. It's like a sci-fi, kind of adventure film a little bit, with the main focus around like trying to communicate with aliens, which is just such a fun premise. Versus a coming of age, like you said, just super important story as well, Barry Jenkins. So I mean, it's so tough, but these 100% deserve to be number 3 and number 4. I guess these are my two highest rated movies that we've done. So I have no complaints that they're up here.
I think Arrival is probably the more impressive movie in terms of what it accomplishes.
Hmm.
But I think
I think,
Moonlight
well,
is maybe the better movie.
yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It is so tough to even compare them because I feel like even like looking at them visually, you would say maybe Arrival has the edge, but like the cinematography of Moonlight is just elite. Like it's so hard to argue because they are different. They're both so good in their different ways.
Yeah, obviously Arrival, very strong, like very much so a genre film. I think what I meant just is like in creating the ships themselves as like computer generated effects, in creating the language and in making that story work is kind of what's more impressive to me. Moonlight, it's based on a play. The story is very well written, but it's not necessarily like hard to imagine making that be successful, as whereas I think Arrival may have been a bit of a tougher task in the actual production. Moonlight, I'm sure, was the harder one to get greenlit and get actual made successfully because of the story it's trying to tell. But two fantastic films, and we've got another two fantastic films to wrap up 1 and 2. Again, tied at 66 and a half. You have Moneyball and Catch Me If You Can. I think Catch Me If You Can, I rated it higher, 68. You gave it a 65. Moneyball, you gave a 67, and I gave a 66. Both of these movies are in my top 4 all time. I mean, I could go either way. Do we want to rep baseball, or do we want to rep, I don't know, Steven Spielberg con artistry?
It's tough. I don't know. I think we could go either way. I did rate Moneyball a little bit higher. That would probably be my vote, honestly, which is kind of funny that if Moneyball's our number one. But I don't really know. I mean, Catch Me If You Can is the highest rating from you at 68. So again, I'm down to defer to you. It's so tough because again, they're just such different movies, and I think Moneyball, just personally for me, I like more, but I do think like Catch Me If You Can is the better flick. But I don't know, it's tough. What are you thinking?
They're both incredibly quotable. They both have fantastic lead and supporting performances, with Pitt and Hill and Moneyball, and Hanks and DiCaprio and Catch Me If You Can. I think, I mean, and then you've got Walken and Philip Seymour Hoffman and like the third supporting performances. So it's really tough. I
I think
think,
that I think that Walken beats out Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Moneyball has Chris Pratt and Catch Me If You Can has Amy
Eh,
Adams. So which one's
oh, that's
better? I think that's an easy pick.
yeah, that's not a competition.
Moneyball has Spike Jones. Catch Me
True.
If You Can has Jennifer Garner
I'd probably take Spike at that one.
and Martin Sheen.
I say we go Catch Me If You Can number one, dude. That's my vote.
I think, for me, I would have been okay with either one, but Catch Me If You Can, I think, has been around in my life. Obviously, it's an older movie, but has been more important in my life for a longer period of time. It has always been my favorite movie, and purely because of the dual mice scene,
Yes.
I think is what deserves to have the top spot. Not saying he gets on base is also a fantastic scene for sure, but
Mhm.
doesn't compare to Walken's line delivery there.
I agree. Christopher Walken for the No Roadway, very deserved. Just alone for the mouse scene, I think you could put that movie in the top 10, and then with the rest of the performances and everything, I think it shoots number one. So I back it.
Well, that is our top 50 films that we've discussed on CAP. It's
Wow.
also the only 50 films that we've done episodes about. To recap the list very quickly, coming in at number 50, The Wrong Missy. Number 49, Chicken Little. Number 48, Paul Blart Mall Cop. Number 47, Ender's Game. Number 46, Jurassic World. Number 45, Stalker. Number 44, Grown Ups. Number 43, Spider-Man 2002. Number 42, Star Wars The Last Jedi. Number 41, The Amazing Spider-Man. Number 40, Top Gun. Number 39, Holes. Number 38, Midsommar. Number 37, Clueless. Number 36, War Dogs. Number 35, Interstellar. Number 34, Elf. Number 33, National Treasure. Number 32, The Princess Bride. Number 31, The Truman Show. Number 30, Napoleon Dynamite. Number 29, Men in Black. Number 28, Halloween. Number 27, Booksmart. Number 26, Uncut Gems. Number 25, T2 Judgment Day. Number 24, The Conjuring. Number 23, Fast Five. Number 22, Dazed and Confused. Number 21, Palm Springs. And Kody, what is the top 20 films? Take it away.
Love it. All right. For numero 20, we have Dune.
20.
That's the only Spanish I know. We're not doing it. All right. 19, Spider-Man No Way Home. Then at number 18, going back to episode 1, Gone Girl. Then 17, we have Her. And then number 16, Jack Black Classic, School of Rock. Cracking in at number 15, one of my favorite episodes, Annihilation. And then along with it at 14 is The Martian. Moving into our CAP's top 13 tier with The Batman at 13. And then along with it at 12 is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Maybe a little bit low at 11 is the classic Lady Bird. And then starting our top 10 is the Scorsese Best Picture winner, The Departed. Then continuing on at 9 with another great flick, Inception. Moving on to just the straight up classics at 8 with Shawshank and 7 with Goodfellas. And then where it gets really difficult for us, moving at number 6 is Good Will Hunting. What a movie. At number 5, The Prestige, classic. Number 4, my favorite movie, Arrival. At number 3, Moonlight. And then the last two, Moneyball and Catch Me If You Can. That is our top 50 movies. What a list. What a time reviewing these movies. And I think we nailed this list, so I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I think we did a good job. Excited for the next 50, and we hope you join us as we continue on to discuss movies. Now we're going to give out some awards for our top 50. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And we're back. So now we're going to give out some awards, and we're going to start with what they usually, end awards shows with our best actor performance. So I think we both have a couple nominees, and then maybe we'll kind of get the singular KHAP winner. And if we need a second runner up, we can pick one. But for me, my three nominees for best acting performance in a KHAP film: Matthew McConaughey for Interstellar, Leonardo DiCaprio for The Departed, and Matt
Uh,
Damon for The Martian.
mm, all very good picks there. Yeah, Matthew McConaughey is good, but I don't think he's going to be our pick. My two nominations, I have Leonardo DiCaprio for The Departed, which you also had, and then I also have Adam Sandler for Uncut Gems, which I know you're not a massive fan of, but again, there's so many to choose from. I think it is funny we both pick Leo for The Departed, and
I
that's
think
where
that's
I
got to
would
be
be
our
Leo.
pick.
Yeah, I agree. I say we go with Leo.
Interesting to see that we don't bring up Matt Damon in that movie. I think
Yeah,
they're both really good. I think the thing that for me is Leo does his role super well, but he also very well could have done Matt Damon's role probably better than him as well. Leo pops up in, I think, 3 or 4 different movies we've done, but I think The Departed is definitely his best performance of all of them.
agreed. Yeah, I think Matt Damon is just as good in that movie as him. It's tough to pick between those two, and he's great in The Martian as well. That's a great shout. The movie's pretty much on his back, I would say, but it's hard to argue against a Boston accent in Leo. So I agree.
All right, moving on to Best Actress. Kody, who do you want to nominate?
I think we'll have some similar nominations here. My first one is Saoirse Ronan, Lady Bird, which I think is the obvious pick, and then I also had Amy Adams for Arrival, which would probably be my favorite. And then lastly, I wanted to shout out Linda Hamilton for Terminator 2: Judgment Day. I think very overlooked, and I think she was ridiculously good in that movie. So I want to shout out her as well. But yeah, what are your noms for Best
See,
Actress?
I like that we're doing this because it kind of can give some shout outs to maybe ones we forget. Obviously, there's 50 movies, 10 of performances. Hard to remember everything. I like that Linda Hamilton shout. That's a good one. I back it. I said Amy Adams for Arrival and Saoirse Ronan for Lady Bird as well. My third was Rosamund Pike for Gone Girl, which I thought about throwing in the supporting actress category. She is technically the titular Gone Girl, and she takes up, I would say, at least half the movie. So I wanted to give her a shout in Best Actress, although I don't think she should be the winner. The question is, do we go Amy Adams or do we go Saoirse Ronan?
Yeah, that's where it gets difficult. Um, I would probably vote Saoirse Ronan, but I mean, I'd be happy with either one. Those are both, I think, clearly the best performances from the ladies out of our top 50 movies.
My thing is, I don't know who else could do the Lady Bird Saoirse Ronan performance as well. Whereas I think maybe there's a couple actresses in Amy Adams' kind of age range
Yeah,
pedigree that could do a rival. You've also got like a lot of there is great supporting performances in Lady Bird, but I think that movie more hinges on her than Arrival hinges purely on Amy Adams. Renner's doing some work.
I guess. I mean, Arrival's cast is like 4 people, so I don't know if I agree with that entirely.
Aliens are really helpful though.
True, that is true. They had a lot of screen time presence, but I do agree. I think like for the caliber of actor that Saoirse Ronan already is in that point in her life, I don't think, like you said, pretty much anybody else could have done that at that time. So yeah, I would make her best actress.
All right, let's move on to Best Supporting Actor. A lot of great options here. I went for 2 shouts. Obviously, Mahershala Ali. He won the Oscar for the role. But another great one, Joe Pesci in Goodfellas is a
Ooh,
classic as well. So, 2 just knockout performances.
yeah, I didn't even think about Pesci. That is a great shout. What do you think? I'm funny? Calling me funny?
Funny how?
One of the best scenes I think out of all the movies. And I of course did have Mahershala Ali for Moonlight down as well. Just like screen time presence for the amount of time he's on screen is ridiculous, and I do think he should be the pick. But as well, I did want to shout out Tyler Perry for Gone Girl.
Good shout. Good
Um,
shout.
I
I did try
legit
to
think
recast him, but he is good in the
true.
movie.
That was again an abomination of a recast. But oh, Tyler Perry is unbelievable in Gone Girl, and maybe like the most surprising performance out of all the movies. I think, even though it was episode 1, I think it's still relevant. But I would probably throw my vote towards Mahershala. What are you thinking?
I think we do got to go Mahershala Ali. We both had him, and it's definitely like that. That might just be the best performance in
Yeah,
any movie on our top 50 list. It is incredible, especially for as little screen time as he has. He's going to be Blade if that movie ever comes out. Obviously, if there's some
supposedly.
production issues, and Marvel might be kind of restructuring some of the stuff they do. But Mahershala Ali, he's incredible, and I can't wait to see him kind of lead something further in
Oh
the
yeah,
MCU. I do love the Tyler Perry shout. Dude doesn't get enough respect or love, I think, from like the mainstream audiences. Dude's worth over $1 billion because of everything he's created himself. Love or hate the Medea movies, they are commercially extremely successful. And as a businessman, as an actor, as a filmmaker, he's great. I know they shot some of the Black Panther stuff, using some of his studios and sets. And he's just a powerful guy, and doesn't is kind of hung back, and maybe doesn't get the love or respect he deserves sometimes.
true. I think specifically his performance in Gone Girl is just so out of character from what he normally does, and super fun. But yeah, Mahershala Ali. I mean, just that specific scene of him like breaking down after having to tell him that he does sell drugs to his mom. Just powerful stuff, man. It really is, and it just connects, I think, with me and a lot of other people as well. So I think that's a great choice. But yeah, so we keep moving along. Switch it up. You should go ahead and tell me your nominees for best supporting actress.
So I know I said, I guess, Lady Bird, really hinges on Saoirse Ronan, but it also hinges on another character, and that's Laurie Metcalf, her mother.
Oh,
Fantastic in the screen time she has. And then the other one I got to give the shout out to, Scarlett Johansson. While we never see her on screen, just pure voice work, incredibly impressive stuff. She says she could play anything. She could play a tree. She could play any race she wants. She can also play a robot, apparently. But ScarJo is great in her.
that is a great pick. I considered her for her as well as the Prestige, and yeah, that opening scene in Lady Bird is great. Obviously, with Sheldon Cooper's mom, whatever her name is. But I actually did have a performance from Lady Bird as well, but it was actually Beanie Feldstein who I
Mm.
was looking at. And then my other nomination is actually Zoe Kravitz for the Batman. I think this category maybe is the most wide open out of all of them. There's no, I feel like, clear and obvious choice. I don't know. What do you think? I think ScarJo is a really good pick, and I kind of forgot about that, just because she makes such an impact on the movie without even like seeing her face, which I think is ridiculous. So that would probably be my vote. But yeah, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think we go ScarJo here, but I do want to give a runner up to Beanie. I think she's great as well, and that's a good shout. Definitely a huge up and coming star. I think this is an important time to like kind of recognize that maybe we didn't do a great job in picking these movies, but also it's an overarching issue in Hollywood in just terms of way that women appear on screen and the kind of characters and the roles that they get to have. And the reason the supporting actress category is so wide open and there's so many great supporting actress categories is because a lot of the movies that we have here, centered around men, and the women often play supporting roles in these films. So there's a ton of great performances here, and there's a ton of great characters, just purely, maybe because of some failings we made while picking movies, and because of some greater issues in Hollywood as a whole.
Absolutely, and I think that's why all of the people we just nominated are from more modern movies from supporting actress. So hopefully the tide is changing, and like these actresses deserve more prominent and better roles. They deserve to be the protagonists and antagonists. And I think Hollywood is changing for the better in that. So hopefully, as we keep doing the show, it does continue in that trend at least.
Surprised there was no shout for Ana de Armas and War Dogs. I know you love
It's
that one.
true. I was looking through all of Anna's performances and tried to snipe one for this category, but yeah, War Dogs is a tough one because she barely spoke English, but she is still decent enough in that. But yeah, sadly missed out on the nom.
All right, let's move on to best child performance. We didn't do a
Oh,
worst child performance, but I do got to shout out a couple. We've kind of mentioned them as we go, but Fred Savage, awful
uh,
in The Princess Bride. Everybody that's in Ender's Game, terrible. All the children that is, and then of
Haley
course
Steinfeld.
Miranda Cosgrove in School of Rock, also not a great performance. But the people that were good, I got to go Mackenzie Foy, Interstellar, Young Murph, of course.
Oh, that's a good one.
Eddie
Damn.
Furlong in T2, which I imagine will pop up on your list. And then
Yep.
Shia LaBeouf in Holes. Three solid
Wow.
kid performances.
That's a great list. And mine is actually very similar. I had Shia LaBeouf in Holes as well. And then Eddie Furlong in T2 as well too. And then my last one is actually Lawrence from School of Rock. Obviously, we had the bad with Miranda Cosgrove, but just the vibe of Larry himself, I think really kind of holds that classroom and that movie together. So I wanted to shout him out. But I actually really like Mackenzie Foy for Interstellar. I think like that transition from child actor to adult actress to Jessica Chastain is one of the best in any movie. That would actually be my pick, just because like the Murph Matthew McConaughey stuff at the beginning, I think that's the best part of Interstellar. Like it low key like makes me tear up. So that'd be my pick. I think that is probably the best child performance. You're probably right.
I think in the Conjuring episode, you said it plainly that Mackenzie Foy was one of the best child performances
Yeah,
you've ever seen. I think you hit on the transition between her and Chastain is I think everything that the it transitions wanted to be, but
yeah.
is extremely more successful. Mackenzie Foy also plays the child of Edward and Bella in the Twilight saga. So as a very young child in that, so not a great performance there. But I think we take Mackenzie Foy as number one for sure.
I back it. And yeah, she could have been in the episode where we were talking about people who need new agents in Hollywood. We may have forgot about her because that Twilight cast is really bad. But yeah, like actually moving forward, she could be like a up and coming star low key. So kind of under the radar right now though, and I think that's a great choice from us though.
All right, and moving on to best directed movie. I actually had a lot of picks for this, and I'm sure you did as well. But Scorsese for Goodfellas, Barry Jenkins for Moonlight, Nolan for The Prestige, Denis Villeneuve for Arrival, and you're gonna hate this, but Ryan Johnson for The Last Jedi are all
Oh
my
my
noms.
god. Oh, you threw that one. It just pissed me off. Yeah, I know I agree with those. Ryan Johnson. Maybe if you said for the mystery movie, maybe. But we'll just ignore that. I pretty much agree with you. I mean, I could have every single one of those down as well. I did have Scorsese for Goodfellas, Nolan for The Prestige, and then Spielberg for Catch Me If You Can. But I mean, yeah, Denis for Arrival and Barry Jenkins for Moonlight as well are obviously ridiculously good. I don't know.
I'm surprised you didn't throw. I'm surprised no Olivia Wilde for Booksmart.
That's true. That is a really well directed movie. I mean, I feel like with our top 15, you could throw the director in, and I would be against it. But I don't know. Where are you leaning? Now, I do have one specific that I was thinking, but I'll defer to you first.
I think it's a toss up between two, but I think we
Mhm.
go Goodfellas. Right the wrongs. He didn't get the win all the way back in 1990. So for me, it's Goodfellas. I think Moonlight's a close second, but it might pop up in some of these later categories.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking actually. Let's lock it in. Scorsese for Goodfellas, best director.
All right, and then moving on to the best written movie. I didn't throw Gerwig in for director because I wanted her here for Lady Bird. Also, shout outs by I think Kaufman wrote it, but her, Gone Girl, Palm Springs, and The Shawshank Redemption, all good, extremely well written films.
Yeah, all good noms. I only had two, and they're different from yours. I had Moneyball, Aaron Sorkin. Come on, and then I also had Matt and Ben for Goodwill Hunting.
As I
I
was
think,
reading this list, I realized, you know what? Didn't put Goodwill Hunting on here, and I think that might be the best.
yeah, I would back that. I think Greta Gerwig is also a very good option, but I think Goodwill Hunting script is maybe the best out of all those, which is pretty insane. But that would probably be where I lean.
Yeah, let's follow in the footsteps of the Academy for this one. Goodwill Hunting, terrible omission for me, and we'll throw Lady Bird as the close runner up.
I like it.
All right, best shot movie is essentially a cinematography award. For me, my noms are The Truman Show, Dune, and Moonlight.
Nice. Those are all great noms. I actually had all different ones. I had Dune probably should be on my list to be fair, but I have Inception, crazy film. Interstellar, surprisingly, just the visuals on that are unbelievable. And then a fun one I threw in as well, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I mean, visually, it's up there with No Way Home, I think, and maybe Mysterio, but I think it is visually probably the best Spider-Man movie. So I wanted to shout that out. Man, we can go any direction with this, I would think. I would be probably between, I mean, I don't know. I'd probably say Dune or Interstellar, just from a visual standpoint. But I mean, cinematography or just visuals, I guess, whatever you want to call this category, best shot, you can judge it so many different ways. Like you could do specific shots, you could do practical effects, visual effects. But yeah, I don't know. What are you thinking?
I think we go Dune here. It was shot by Greg Fraser. He also cinematographer on Rogue One and Zero Dark 30. He's really good, and I think the mixing of the CGI and the real world aspects and everything looks extremely practical and extremely tactile. The sand and the drying, it feels so real, and I think that's a testament to both what Fraser and Denis were able to pull off in Dune.
Yeah, I 100% back that. Visually, I mean, just one of the most interesting movies, I think, on our list. So yeah, I back it.
I think as a collective filmography, Denis Villeneuve's visual style is maybe one of my favorites. The stuff he does in 2049, as well. Enemy, Arrival, Dune, Prisoners. There's the scene of Gyllenhaal going to the hospital in the rain
Yeah,
is one of my favorite scenes, directed and shot of all time. He's
yeah,
fantastic.
I could not agree more. I mean, Prisoners is one of my favorite movies as well. Actually, I checked out 2049 this past week, so I want to talk about my Rex. But yeah, Denis, I said it before. I think he is the best working director today, and it's not particularly close. So big shout out to him.
All right, and moving on to best music, best score, best soundtrack, however you want to describe it. I had two picks here, and it's not too surprising that they're both Nolan films and they're both Hans Zimmer scores, in Interstellar and Inception. I think the music for both is incredible. In terms of, I've never been a guy who's like super like, oh, I can recognize this music score, or like really like think about that after the fact. Like I think if a score is done right, it adds to the movie, and it's just it just becomes one with the movie. It's hard to almost separate as its own entity. But for me, Inception and Interstellar are probably the most recognizable, outside of maybe the Dune or the Batman. But I don't think those are as good, despite being recognizable.
Yeah, that's fair. Those are a couple of interesting picks for me, honestly. I think I would maybe disagree with both of those. I mean, Interstellar, the the main theme of Interstellar. Yeah, exactly. It's just Hans Zimmer just banging on his organ as loud as he can. But the Interstellar like theme is really really good. I agree with you there. My picks are a lot different. I think I was more like soundtrack based, different to like score, which I think you focus on a lot. Dazed and Confused, obviously. School of Rock, such good music. Top Gun, great soundtrack. I mean, Kenny Loggins, tough to beat. And then I wanted to shout out Grown Ups as well. Underrated soundtrack. When you're watching the movie, it doesn't stand out as a great soundtrack, I don't think. But if you like go back and actually listen to all the songs, I think it's underrated. Yeah, I don't know. I think we could go score wise. I would be happy with Inception for sure. That's an unbelievable score.
I think let's split it up. Let's go
Mhm.
score. So between my
Okay.
two, let's pick Inception for best score, and then soundtrack. What do you think? I would probably go Dazed and Confused, because I think the
I,
music in that is so good.
yeah, it's
Top
between
Gun is
Days
also
and
great.
Confused. Top Gun. I would vote School of Rock, but I would be happy with Days and Confused as well. I think both of those, like every single song, is iconic. But Days and Confused, like it has those classic hits from like the 70s and 80s. So I would lean that way too.
I do want to say, when we did the Dazed and Confused episode, we were just talking, nothing crazy, nothing going on. But our good friend Jackson Muro, guest of the show, had an issue with our analysis of one of the songs, Hurricane.
Yeah.
He said that's not what the song's about. We decided to provide some extra text to the to the song that maybe doesn't exist at certain points.
True. Good retcon, it's always good back to recognize our mistakes. But yeah, that was a fun episode, and I don't blame us entirely for maybe messing up a couple times. So shout out. When was that? When we recorded it back in like April or something?
I think so.
But yeah, good episode. Go check that out too.
Moving on to most underrated movie. Kody, what's your most underrated movie?
This one was tough because we have a lot of very good movies and a lot of movies that I wouldn't consider underrated, but maybe other people would. I put The Departed in here just because everybody always rags on it as, oh, how did this one win, best picture for Scorsese is whatever. But I think it's one of his best. So I want to throw that in. But then my other two, Booksmart and Annihilation. I think nobody talks about Annihilation. And it really is one of the most interesting movies I've ever seen in my life. So those are my two thoughts, kind of just like under the radar stuff more than, I don't know if really underrated. But yeah, what were you thinking?
I like Annihilation for that thought process of, like just underseen almost. For me, I went with a movie that I think is kind of overhated almost, and that's The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because there's a lot of great stuff in that movie. There's a lot of problems for sure, but there's also a lot of fun and good stuff that I think because of Dane DeHaan and other things in that movie, people don't appreciate what we had with The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I back that completely. Like I said earlier, that's one of my like legitimate guilty pleasure movies. I love that movie for some reason, and Dane DeHaan is great in it. So I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, I would 100% be down for that to be our pick.
A lock in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Cool. All right, most overrated movie. I'll get it off with one, and this is purely box office critical success wise. It's got to be Jurassic World. I think that movie sucks. And, like we ragged on it. We called it out. So I don't necessarily need to do any more of that. And I feel bad for maybe how hard we were, on Sebastian's favorite movie, but, or not maybe his favorite, but, a movie that he enjoys a lot. But for me, I think that's easily our most overrated film that we've talked about.
That's a good pick. Shout out to Sebastian as well. One of our more avid listeners, and yeah, we got to have him back on again.
Oh yeah, definitely. Loved doing that episode with him.
That is a good one. I have three choices, and I feel like most of them are just personal. But I'll throw them out. Obviously, The Last Jedi. I mean, what does that have? Like,
I knew you were going to say it.
Yeah, like 90% of Rotten Tomatoes. Come on. And then Interstellar, of course, as well. Pretty beloved. And then something I was talking about earlier too, The Truman Show. I think that movie is criminally overrated. But I forgot about The Lost World. That kind of, I lost that one in translation. So I'd be happy with any one of those four. Shout out Jimmy Fallon from Jurassic World. Great bit. But yeah, that movie is not very good.
Jimmy Buffett too, cameo in Jurassic World. Listen, I like Interstellar, and I don't think I could see The Truman Show. I could take The Truman Show as being overrated, because while I like it a lot, I do think it is overrated.
Okay, I see we go with that. Yeah, Interstellar. I mean,
we'll go the truth. Sorry, Trev.
Rip Trev.
And Jackson too. He loves that movie, but whatever.
I think he loves Interstellar more, so I'm sure he'll be fine with it. Yeah.
All right. Best date movie. This was a fun one. What would you watch with a significant other on a date? Kody, take it away. What do you think are the best date movies we've discussed?
There are some good picks. I feel like the obvious ones are the comedies, but I'll stay mostly away from those. Actually, not really, but just away from Adam Sandler. My nominations, first off, I'm going Elf. I think it's a great holiday, choice with a date. My next one is going to be Clueless for obvious reasons. And then Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I think, is the obvious choice, and would probably be my pick. But yeah, what were your noms?
I got three different ones from you, surprisingly, nice. But going in the vein of like the rom-com, I think Palm Springs is a great one. School of Rock, childhood classic if you just want to have a fun with your significant other. And then the classic, I think horror movies are great to watch on a date, because they get scared, they get cuddle up against you a little bit. So I got to go with The Conjuring for a great date movie as well. But I think Ferris Bueller, that's a pretty solid pick, unless you want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, that would probably be my best pick. The horror angle is a good point. I didn't even think of that. But I feel like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, it's just so much fun. I feel like it is the most fun movie I
There's a
think out
good
of the bunch.
relationship at the center of it as well, which is
Yeah.
fitting, you know.
And it's like, oh, like we should go do those things as well after we watch this. Like, I really want to go to Chicago
Like
with you after
literally, like
watching
let's
this. Yeah.
go to the top of the Willis Tower. Let's go to the Museum of Art. Let's jump in
Let,
a parade. Yeah, it's a
let's
lot of
lip
fun
sync,
stuff.
yeah. Twisted Chow, yeah. I wish I could do that. But yeah, that would be my pick. I think that's almost the perfect day movie.
I think Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a great one. Also, just a great one to watch with anybody. I think just in
Sure.
terms of just like watch it with your family, watch it by yourself. Ferris Bueller's Day
Yeah.
Off. Best to watch in a theater. This is an interesting one. So for me, I went with a movie that on the podcast I said I deeply regretted having never seen it in the theater, and that's Annihilation. And then I'll go with two that I did see in the movie theater. Fast Five, one of my earliest movie
Ooh.
going experiences. Definitely a good one to see in a movie theater. And then, of course, Spider-Man No Way Home at time
Yeah.
of release, theater going experience, probably the best one.
Yeah. And Spider-Man No Way Home, that's on my list as well. I feel like that's the obvious pick. Annihilation is a great one. I didn't even think about that. I wish I saw that in theaters. I think that would be so much fun. My other two picks, maybe obvious again, but Interstellar. I mean, come on. I never want to watch that movie again. But if I do, like, I would want to see it in the theater just for that experience. And then Dune as well. I think that's another one. Just visually, it's like you have to see it on the big screen. But yeah, I defer to you here. I think I've been making a couple picks. What are you thinking?
I think Spider-Man No Way Home is like an obvious choice, but I will say I got a chance to see it. I think I've seen this movie 3 times in theaters.
Mhm.
Yeah, 3 times. Maybe 4 actually.
Did you? I thought you saw the extended cut too, didn't you?
Well, so yeah, that's the thing. I went and re-saw it for National Cinema Day back in I think September.
Yeah.
So I've seen it more recently in theaters, but I will say is the thing that makes seeing that in a theater great is the collective experience and the initial reactions, not
Yeah.
necessarily the visuals of the movie or the fact that you're seeing it on the big screen or the sound. Whereas I think Annihilation and Dune would be better picks in terms of movie going experience. I did see Dune in theaters. It was really, I think that's probably part of the reason why I love it, maybe more than some people, because it is like true movie going experience.
I back that. That was on my list as well. And I mean, it the knee. I think at his visual best. So I back it. I said we go Dune.
Yeah, let's lock in Dune. Very excited to see Dune too. Personal goal, I'm really trying. Mina and I are trying to go to the Venice Film Festival next year, and
Really,
hopefully see Dune Tune premiere. So
damn,
we'll see what happens, but it
that'd be
would be
sick.
pretty cool. And then finally, our last award to give out, most rewatchable movie. Kody, take it away. What are your noms?
Yeah, this is a great category. I think we can nominate a lot of ones. First off the bat, The Princess Bride, uh, throwing it back to season two. I think I said it about 10 times that episode that this is super rewatchable, and Corbin disagreed every time. But my other picks, Fast Five, which you mentioned, another movie I've seen way too many times. And then lastly, the Nick Cage classic, National Treasure. Yeah, like you said, I feel like I've memorized all the historical facts in that movie because I've seen it so many times. And I think the key to this category is, quotable and just fun. And all three of those fit. But I'd love to hear your choices. I would guess you're gonna have like holes in here, maybe Chicken Little. But yeah, what are you thinking?
Holes would have been a good one, but I didn't throw it up. It is extremely rewatchable. Obviously, Catch Me If You Can, just
Yeah, that's a good
pure
one.
quotability, and probably the of these 50 movies, either Catch Me If You Can, my next pick, School of Rock, or Holes are probably the 3 movies I've seen the most in my lifetime. So those two for sure, Catch Me If You Can, School of Rock. And then a third one, which is a little bit later in life watch, but Dazed and Confused as well, I think is just extremely rewatchable because it's very much just a vibe hangout type movie. I'm curious, what do you think we should go here, Kody?
I think we should go with Catch Me If You Can. If I'm being honest, I forgot about that. That's definitely up there with one of the most movies I've seen as well, the most times. And it like met my categories perfectly. I think it is super fun and it's ridiculously quotable. So I say we go with that.
Absolutely. Well, that is our awards. And just to recap our winners, our best acting performance goes to Leonardo DiCaprio for The Departed. Our best actress performance goes to Saoirse Ronan for Lady Bird. Our best supporting actor goes to Mahershala Ali in Moonlight. Best supporting actress, Scarlett Johansson for Her. Best child performance was Mackenzie Foy in Interstellar. Our best directed movie was Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas. Our best written movie was Good Will Hunting, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. Our best shot movie was Dune, Greg Fraser, of course, directed by Denis Villeneuve. Best music, best score was Inception. Shout out to Hans Zimmer. And then our best soundtrack, we decided Dazed and Confused. Our most underrated movie, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Our most overrated movie, The Truman Show. Best date movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Best movie to see in the theater, Dune. And the most rewatchable movie of KHAP's 50 movies is Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect ending to that category as well. Ending with, our number one movie being the most rewatchable. I think it hits it, right on the head. Yeah,
very much the reason why it was at the top, because Catch Me If You Can is probably not, again, like the most technically sound or the best movie of those 50, but because it is so damn rewatchable, we have such an affection for it.
Yep, agreed.
And I do want to shout out we've had a lot of guests on the show, but I want to shout out the ones specifically that have come in and come, to talk about movies. The initial idea I had for this podcast was a show where we take our friends and we tell them, hey, what's a movie you love? And let's talk about it. Because I think I love doing the episodes with you, but I also love having people on because, it's so interesting to see whether it's, Sebastian in Jurassic World or Emmy McLaughlin in The Wrong Missy. To, just kind of see these movies, like movies that they enjoy, and whether maybe it's a movie we haven't seen before, but it's so fun to talk about people's favorite movies and why they enjoy them. And that's what this is about. It's about, this podcast is about you and I, continuing a connection, despite living 10 hours away from each other, and continuing a connection with all of our friends.
True. And there's so many people to shout out guest wise. I think the best example of if you're going to come on is Austin Nighthauser. Maybe don't pick, the best movie of all time. You picked Ender's Game, which is an atrocious movie, but it's so interesting to talk about. And yeah, like you said, I feel like just bringing people on and just bringing their perspective in, because I feel like our perspective is pretty known, in the podcast now.
And we typically come from a similar place and we know where each other are coming from. So throwing in the guest is always a great addition.
Agreed. And we need more guests. If you're listening to this right now and you want to come on the show, hit us up immediately. We're going to say yes. So just ask. But, and yeah, if you were a past guest as well in these 50, again, hit us up again, because we'll probably be hitting you up. I think we should, start circling back, because we've had a ton of fun guests, and I'm sure they have more movies to talk about.
Just to shout them out and to say thank you to all these people. Season 1, episode 4, we had Spider-Man featuring Connor Van Overberg. Going into season 2, episode 2, we had Interstellar featuring Aiden Cotter. Season 2, episode 4, Palm Springs featuring Jackson Mihuron. Moving on, season 2, episode 12, The Shawshank Redemption featuring Colton Boren. Season 2, episode 14, Ender's Game featuring Austin Nighthauser. Season 2, episode 17, Elf featuring Hayden Malkowski. Season 2, episode 20, The Truman Show featuring Trevor Van Overberg. Season 2, episode 23, Clueless featuring Mina Naki. Season 3, episode 8, The Wrong Missy featuring Emmy McLaughlin. Season 3, episode 12, Jurassic World featuring Jacob Sebasti. Season 3, episode 16, Napoleon Dynamite featuring Jacob Sullivan. Season 3, episode 20, Good Will Hunting featuring Jake Ross. Season 3, episode 21, Inception featuring Jacob Hughes. Is
that like 4 straight Jacobs right there?
Well, we've had a lot on the show. Definitely our most popular guest name. Season 3, episode 25, Ferris Bueller's Day Off featuring Jack.
Mix it up, yeah.
Not Jacob, the star of my film Contactless. Shout out to him. As well, moving on.
Season 4, episode 8, Paul Blart Mall Cop featuring Ben Smith.
Season 4, episode 10, The Conjuring featuring Abby Feiner. Season 4, episode 11, Halloween featuring Tyler Cagle. And that's all of them. Shout out to all of our guests. Really appreciate all of them coming in and talking about, some of their favorite movies or at least movies that they enjoyed discussing.
Absolutely. Love our guests.
All right, let's move on to We Have a Podgorithm.
Blockbuster Video. Wow, what a difference.
Like, yeah, season 4.
Of course, the new deck, this game where we draw a random movie card and then have to give our hot take opinion on it for the next 30 seconds. Movie is Captain Marvel. This is an interesting one.
Oh, interesting. I don't think we've talked about this in a very long time. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Captain Marvel. With this movie, I don't remember the names of the directors for this movie. I believe it was a pair. I'm just gonna look it up. Captain Marvel director.
I should don't know.
Yes, it was directed by two people, Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. They're yeah, you don't know who they are, right? This is a typical Marvel movie where they pulled two indie directors to come in and make the movie that realistically they probably didn't have a lot of say or power in creating, and it was very much a studio film, and there was a million different writers for this movie. There's 3 listed because that's all you're allowed to have listed, but there's another 5 people that worked on the story, and who knows however many other people in the writer's room at any given time. Brie Larson's fine in the lead. Samuel Jackson, just some strange, like Ben Mendelsohn, Jude Law, Jamin Hansu, your boy. Just kind of some weird performances. I think very much this is a movie that would have been better off with a singular writer director just getting to kind of tell a story rather than kind of getting stuck in the Marvel machine at a very integral point in the Marvel storytelling. This movie obviously came out in 2019, right around, in between Infinity War and Endgame and everything that was happening with that. I think it kind of just suffers because of that. Obviously, it's the first, female protagonist in a Marvel film, so people are already going to hate it because of that. But, I'm excited for the Marvels and Nia DaCosta, maybe a more seasoned director, taking that on.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I think directorial wise, they didn't even really make a choice. They kind of just, it seems like the most studio Marvel movie of all time. I feel like if maybe if they gave this to Chloe Zhao at the right time, or Nia DaCosta, obviously, she's getting the sequel, thank God. But I am excited for the sequel. I think this movie has tons of issues, and none of it really has to do with the cast. Jude Law is bad, but I mean the writing for his character is bad. Like supposedly he's the villain, but then there's this other hierarchical girl who is also the villain. I don't even understand the plot mostly, if I'm being honest. But like Brie Larson and Sam Jackson and even Agent Coulson back is fun, and having it set in a different time period is cool. And also, like you said, it's literally split in between the 2 Avengers movies. So kind of nobody wanted to see it, and it had nothing to do with the Avengers movies. They literally snapped everyone out of existence and was like, hey, this happened, in the 80s. And everyone was like, we don't care. And it's also really poorly written. So I'm super excited for the sequel. I think Brie Larson is a great choice for Captain Marvel, but I think this was just wrong time and wrong place for this movie. But hopefully we will see like better character development in the sequel for her.
Yeah, their whole handling of Captain Marvel has been pretty poor in general, I would say. It is unfortunate because like Brie Larson was filming the scenes for Endgame before they even made Captain Marvel. Yep. So she like didn't even really know who the character was or what it was going to be. It just unfortunate, kind of poor timing. But for as successful as they were for 10, 12 years, to have a couple missteps in there, it's going to happen. I do want to shout out Lashana Lynch. She's very good in this. She's also very good in The Woman King. That came out earlier this year. And, I had the hot take. I bet you $20 it wasn't getting any noms at the Academy Awards. I might be eating my lunch or eating my words. And when it gets nominated for Best Picture here in a couple months.
You're going to be buying a Qdoba for me for lunch one of these days. But yeah, in hindsight, that probably was not a great bet. But yeah, Nia DaCosta. Honestly, dude, I really wish they would have given her the original Captain Marvel, because she is a really good director, I think. But yeah, the second one looks pretty good. Throw in a couple other Marvels. Miss Marvel was a fun show. I think it should, like, no doubt better than the original. So at least we have that for us.
All right, let's move on to our recommendations.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Oh
been a
wow.
minute since we've recorded, so I'm sure there's a lot to discuss. But I'll let you take things away, Kody. What have you been
Yeah,
into recently?
it has been a while since we've recorded, so I'm sure that you have gone through a lot of stuff. I've been going through some as well. I'll keep you a little bit brief. I'm still making my way through The Wire. That's sort of the show I'm binging currently. I just finished season 2, and I don't think season 2 is the best out of all the seasons. I believe there's 5, and season 1 was very good. Season 2 is kind of meh. We go from this drug dealing, you know, uh, crackdown case with a great villain in Barksdale in season 1, and such like just such great characters in season 1 of just like people who aren't that important to the story. A young Michael B. Jordan who actually ends up dying at the end of season 1 is phenomenal. Probably the best character in the entire season. But season 2, it focuses instead on like it's like a docking scandal. It's got Holly from The Office. Um, it takes a different direction. It still has like Barksdale in prison, more in the background, and Idris Elba is kind of, becoming this great villain, which is going to be in season 3 and moving on. So I'm excited for that. But season 2 wasn't the best. Anywho, been checking out a lot of movies as well. I mentioned Blade Runner 2049 earlier, so I might as well just talk about that. Um, I'll tell you what, man, this movie's pretty damn good. I could throw out a lot of curse words about how good it is, but I won't. Ryan Gosling, perfect casting. I don't understand how this guy's so good and everything. It's kind of ridiculous. Ana de Armas, gotta shout her out. Even Harrison Ford in like 10 minutes is pretty good, surprisingly. Did not expect that for him to be good. But this honestly might be the most beautiful movie I've ever seen. Um, Cinematography, just out of this world stuff. And Denis Villeneuve, I'm trying to watch all of his films, and I finally got around to watching this one. I obviously wanted to watch the original first, which I did earlier in the year. But if you haven't seen 2049, definitely check it out. I was actually chatting with our boy Jake Junior Ross as well about it, because I know it's one of his personal favorites. But it's 100% a 5-star movie for me. So definitely check that out. A couple other movies I watched. I don't remember if I talked about this last time, but I checked out Isle of Dogs, which is a Wes Anderson stop motion film. Super fun. I checked that out if you haven't. And then, dude, I saw Nope as well for the first time. Finally saw that film, and it is very good. I do like Get Out, I think, a little bit more in terms of Jordan Peele's filmography. But Daniel Kaluuya is great. Kiki Palmer's amazing. I want to see her in so much more stuff. And then, like the Stephen Yen storyline in it, honestly, is probably my favorite part. And he's not even in the movie that long. But yeah, the ending, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, just because the whole spoiler, I guess. But if you're still listening at this point, who cares? But obviously, it's like an organism at the end. And the visuals are cool. I don't know if I love that choice. I really love like the main themes of a predator's always going to be a predator, and just like showmanship of humans will do anything if they can make money off it. Basically, the Stephen Yen, especially part of that.
Well, and
Obviously, the
then
flashback scene.
that short, entrance of the TMZ character also plays very heavily into that. There's a ton of great themes in this about, like you said, trying to capture, wildlife or in the unknown on film, and yeah, like you said, the ways, humans take advantage of the natural world to a certain degree.
Yeah, and I think that's the strong part of Nope is like the writing. I feel like the more you think about the movie, like the deeper the themes go. So I love that a lot. Definitely check that out too. It's on Peacock now.
And
That's
Nope is a cool transition for him because it's kind of a horror movie, but it is like, it's like Jaw. It's like a Spielberg movie to a certain degree. It's so large scale. I mean, he's continuing to get bigger and bigger budgets as he's making these projects. This movie didn't do as well at the box office, sadly, but yeah, like if Jordan Peele is basically our next Steven Spielberg in the kinds of films he's creating, yeah, I'm okay with that.
well, I'm on board with that as well. But oh yeah, anything this guy produces, that we're gonna be in line to see it. So shout out to him. And the last flick I checked out for the first time, I've been watching a lot of good movies for a change, which I really like. I checked out Spotlight. I believe it was Best Picture winner. No, I believe so. But yeah, the performances really carry this movie. I think Michael Keaton, Rachel McAdams, obviously Bruce Banner himself,
I
Mark
knew.
Ruffalo. Honestly, this is probably the best Mark Ruffalo I've seen. I think in the past I've probably dogged on him a lot. I genuinely don't think he's a very good actor, if I'm being completely honest. But this is probably the best thing I've seen him in. Just shout out to him. Michael Keaton as well is one of the best I think from him as well in this movie. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Survivor's still going on. I know you're not completely caught up, but the last episode, something finally happened. So we'll have to talk about it next time. But the season finale is in a week, I believe. So Survivor 40, what is this? 43? 43, I think. Finally about to come to an end. You know, I would say about time. It's been a long season. But yeah, I'll throw it over to you. I'm sure you have tons of X.
Yeah, I mean, since we last watched, I've been seeing a lot of new stuff. Couple kind of got to see a couple things a little early. So got to see Glass Onion when it was in theaters for just a short
Yeah.
week before it releases on Netflix later in December.
I'm jelly.
You know, don't want to spoil anything. I'm not as high as I was on Knives Out.
Yeah, because that's like your perfect movie of all time.
I do love
you
Knives
always
Out.
talk about that.
But this is a very good movie. Ryan Johnson knows exactly what he's doing, and if Netflix wants to give him $1 billion to make 6 more, I would actually be completely okay with it. Continue doing your thing, Ryan Johnson. And I think Janelle Monáe, going back to Moonlight, is definitely the standout performance for me. So maybe a Best Supporting Actress nod. Who knows? Another movie I had to see a little bit early that doesn't come out until December is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, Kody, the sequel to the 2011 Puss in Boots film. Cute little story. I like Puss in Boots. I like cats. This one's very much Puss in Boots dealing with his his mortality and the fact that his life may be coming to an end as he's expended all 8 of his other lives, and he's on his final one. So I definitely related to that as a person who is getting closer and closer to death with every waking breath. Moving on, a couple classics: Source Code, The Proposal, and Ratatouille. All were watched in the last week and a half. They're all average, fine movies to varying degrees. Source Code, another Chicago classic. Any thoughts on those 3 movies?
Yeah, I have a gripe that you're calling Ratatouille.
Ratatouille is just average. The most mid movie of all time.
Honestly, I think that and WALL-E are my 2 favorite Pixar films.
Love WALL-E. I just think Ratatouille is so overrated.
No, I think Ratatouille, if we did a rating on it, like that's 67, 66 for me. It's a classic animated pick.
My God. Okay. And then in terms of some more 22 releases, Holy Spider, which is this Iranian film about a real life serial killer in the early 2000s who was killing prostitutes in an Iranian city. It's similar to Zodiac in some ways, but it kind of switches back and forth between the killer and the journalist that it decides to follow a lot. And it focuses on the killer a lot more than Zodiac does, to varying success at different points. I think maybe it spends a little bit too much time with him, but a really shocking beginning and shocking end. Also checked out the Glenn Powell, Jonathan Majors movie. Have you figured out who Glenn Powell is yet, Kody? Do you know who that is? You still?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. Devotion.
Top Gun too, yeah.
Which is this movie about the Korea War. Basically the story, I don't know, just like not even I don't know if they needed to make this movie. Listen, it's very cool. It's about Jonathan Majors, who was one of the first Black pilots in the Navy, which is an awesome story. But in terms of what actually happens, maybe are we running out of ideas for movies? I don't know.
Stuff.
But Jonathan Majors is the best part of it.
Yeah, I love Jonathan Majors. I think it's kind of funny, Glenn Powell's getting typecast as just a pilot now, it seems. But that's kind of weird.
Yeah. 2 for 2 in 2022. And then I also saw Strange World, which is the new Jake Gyllenhaal animated film.
Mhm.
Not great. Disney's been on a bit of a rough patch as of late. This is, I think, more in the Lightyear territory rather than the like Turning Red territory, or like Luca. I think those are two more successful Disney movies. Obviously, those are both Pixar, but yeah, I don't know. Strange World, it's fine. The resolution of what this strange world is very strange, and I'm not a fan of it. And then I also saw a documentary called Tantura, which is about the war in Israel and Palestine in 1948, and how it's a documentary from an Israeli filmmaker about basically a cover up of a massacre that occurred at a specific village in 1948, and kind of the ways that the Israeli government and academia has denied this happening and even gone to like shun people who have tried to speak out about it. So really interesting film. And I also got to go to a Q&A with the director right after it, very small, intimate Q&A. And it was really cool to hear him talk. Definitely would recommend checking it out. Might, make a best doc nom. And then also the last one, my favorite of these 2022 movies that I've seen in the last couple of weeks is White Noise. It is absolutely insane. This movie will be coming out on Netflix in the next couple of weeks, but it's Noah Baumbach directed and written, starring Don Cheadle in a supporting role, as well as Adam Driver and Greta Gerwig as the two leads. I get why people aren't loving it that much. There is definitely some issues. The characters are insane. It's very just like the dialogue is. I've described some of his and Gerwig's work in the past as almost being Sorkin-esque with how snappy it is. The dialogue is extremely intelligent and snappy and boom, boom, boom. It's very similar to like Marriage Story and Meyerowitz stories in that way. But the reason I loved it is just because of the themes and this general feeling of anxiety, similar to Puss in Boots, about what it means to be alive and what it means to potentially be dying constantly. And as we approach that point in our lives, in the context of family and also in the context of like corporatized, capitalized America, that stuff just I really love and I really enjoy. I actually just bought the book, Don DeLillo Nava, White Noise, that I'm gonna pretend to start reading, but probably never will read. But yeah, those are the movies I've checked out recently.
Nice. I love how you compare White Noise to Puss in Boots on their themes and stuff. That's funny, but yeah, it's actually kind of like it seems like a decent amount coming to Netflix soon. That I'm excited about. So glad to hear that you liked it.
And looking forward to the next episode. This weekend, I'm gonna go see The Whale with Brendan Fraser and get a little
Awesome.
Darren Aronofsky Q&A after that. So definitely excited about that. Yeah,
that's dope. I'm jealous of that as well. But crazy.
Yeah. So I'll have the review for that in the next one.
Awesome.
Well, this has been a fun top 50. Kody, what's the clip of the week gonna be?
Oh, it's a tough one. What did I say earlier? I think I don't remember.
Whatever you said earlier. There we go.
Sure. Oh, it's Contactless. Go watch Contactless. That's our clip.
Contactless is the clip of the week. Okay, there you go. Let's run the 10 minutes of audio at the end of this.
Right now. Do it right now.
You know what? I still don't think I quite get it. Maybe you could take this one for me? Just so I can, see how it's done.
Man, fuck that, bro. You walk up the steps, knock on the door, put the pizzas on the ground, and walk away. People don't even want to talk to you anymore. They just want you to leave it at the door. Contactless. Come on now, I know you're not an idiot. You've been following me around for 2 days? This is the last delivery and my phone just died, so I would really like to get back to the store.
God, how is this the only job I could get?
Listen, you got this shit. Go deliver the fuck out of that pizza.
But what if...
Dude, I've been doing this shit for 3 years. 3 years. And the craziest shit I've seen is some dude wearing nothing but a crisp pair of white socks. At least he tipped well. Listen, man. I know you're a little jumpy, but at some point you're gonna have to step out into the real world. You can't live your life completely avoiding everything. Come on now, what's the worst that could happen?
We need to get the hell out of here. Go! Quick, give me your phone. We need to call the police.
What the hell happened back there? And my phone died because we sat in front of that house for 20 minutes, remember?
We need to get help now. Do you not have a car charger? Like, how is that even possible? Your job is literally dependent on your cell phone.
All right, chill the fuck out. Like I said, you were contemplating getting out of the car from 30% to 0%.
Okay, whatever. We need to go to the police.
Finally, something I can work with. Unsurprisingly, I deliver to a ton of middle-aged cops. Probably like half my business. You're telling me this dude's ear was completely off?
Yes, how many times do I have to say it?
I don't know, man, but that shit's pretty cool. Beats my naked guy story.
Please, can we just report this and be done with it?
So like you're saying it was completely cut off? Or was a piece of it missing like when Mike Tyson
I didn't order any damn pizza.
Sir, please, we need your help. I just witnessed something terrible and I think someone might be after us.
All right, calm down. Just come inside. We'll write a report.
Please, sir, it's urgent.
Hey, slow your roll. All right, come inside. We'll write a report. I'll send a car. Whatever. Let's come on. Okay, I'll make a quick call down to the station. Send a car down. What's the address?
206 West Elm. Please tell them to hurry.
Gotcha.
All right, I'm gonna go check on him.
Yeah, I'm telling you, your little problem just walked through my front door. Yeah, and he's with my pizza delivery guy. Small world. Listen, I'll take care of it.
What the fuck are you doing?
Run!
Hey, little fella. Where'd you run off to? I was just about to fill out your little report. You know what? Fuck you. You little fucking twerp. You really had to show up at my house and beg for my help? Fortunately for you, I get paid to not care about what happens in that house. Now, if you ever want to see your sorry little friend alive, you'll go to the address I just texted you. And of course, don't try calling the police, because I am the police, bitch.
Why me? All right, I'm coming, David. Anybody order a pizza?
Get out of the car! Timothy, get the fuck out of here! Shut the fuck up.
You're just gonna kill us both, right? There's no way we make it out.
I'm sure there's something we can work out to make everyone happy.
Come on now, what's the worst that could happen?
I could think of a few things.
Who's going to listen anyways?
I will.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace out. Stay capping.
What you've just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.